Good morning, everybody. While we're waiting for some other people to come on, I'm going to put a slide up so that you could just briefly introduce yourselves to me. I promise I'll do introductions of myself as well. This will just give me an idea of the roles that you play, give everybody a chance to get on as well, and it'll help me to guide you through the platform today. And feel free to just respond to those in chat. You don't have to come on live or anything.
Well, while they're answering in the chat, I'll just go ahead and introduce myself to everyone here, although a few people do know me. My name is Mike Slackman. I am your customer success manager. I live down here in Miami, and I am up to visit your district a couple of times a year. So I'm in the office a lot. I work with Elizabeth, and I also now work with Dr. Dave. So I'm very happy to be here, very excited to learn more about eduClimber with you. And I will be working behind the scenes to help answer any questions Dave and anybody else have, especially those that make it onto that parking lot. So don't be afraid to put those questions there if you need them.
Okay, so thank you, Michael, for introducing yourself. I am Andrea Hemel. I also work with eduClimber. I am going to introduce a little bit more about myself. Let me just share a couple of things, get this out the way. For the people that are there, I see lots of coaches, lots of coordinators. Great, that will help me to definitely point some things in your direction. And I also want to share with you the Google Calendar or the Google Drive link. This is a folder to a Google Drive folder where you'll have about 5 different resources. So I'll put that on the screen. I'll go over these resources with you. Again, if you're just joining, if you don't mind, go ahead and just let me know a little bit about your role and what grade levels you may touch in a day. And then a little bit more about me. Again, my name is Andrea Hemel. I work with Illuminate Ed. I've had a little bit more than 21 years in public education. I'm right outside of the New Orleans, Louisiana area, so not too terribly far away. And I've been with Illuminate Ed a little bit over a year. So I definitely can relate to a lot of where you are. I know your time is valuable. I know that your jobs are not as easy as maybe we once thought they were. So I'm going to make this as easy as I can. I'm going to encourage you to ask questions. Like Michael said, please put your questions on Parking Lot. But also don't be afraid to throw me a message in chat during the training. I don't care if I'm mid-sentence. I want to make sure you understand. If you're stuck on step 1 or 2 and I'm going all the way to 10, that's no good for you because you're not going to know what to do. You're going to feel lost. You're going to feel confused. And that's ultimately going to lead to frustration and you not wanting to use eduClimber. So my whole goal is to stick with my educator mind as I know I am, and it's to answer your questions. So please don't hesitate to ask questions when you're stuck. I will do everything more than once and I will give you lots of time to play. So I want you to feel comfortable with this. I want you to just make this as informal as you want. We are recording, and that's for the sake of you being able to go back and review anything you might have forgotten or missed or just didn't understand enough to your depth as you wanted to understand it. So with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and go through a few of these slides with you. I think we have most people. It looks like we've got quite a few, Dr. Dave. So I'll go ahead and just proceed forward from here. So we're going to spend the next a couple hours, 3 hours, going over the data within the software, kind of reviewing the platform and just getting really comfortable with it. As I was telling Dr. Dave early on, day 2, 3, 4, they're going to be so much more comfortable for you just because you're already going to understand what you're doing and how to dig in. So today, I really want you to ask those questions and I really want you to click around. It's okay to click. You're not going to mess anything up. You're going to know if you're going to mess something up because it's going to say, are you sure you want to delete with a big red button? But I am definitely going to guess that most of you don't have permissions to even possibly go in and delete anything. So I don't want you to be afraid to click into things. I don't want you to be afraid to explore. And as you all as leaders that will, I'm going to guess, ultimately turn around and train other teachers within your district on this program, encourage them as well. We always give the most restrictive access, and then we allow permissions, and that's intentional so that you don't have more than you should because of FERPA guidelines, as well as the platform itself and what you'd be able to dig into. So that link that I sent, I'm going to resend it for those that just joined because you won't see it in chat. The link that's in chat will bring you to a Google Drive folder that looks like what I have on my screen. You'll have a parking lot. So this is where I want to encourage you to put any questions you have. I will add questions on there throughout the training, even if I answer it, because I treat it as a frequently asked questions type document. Dr. Dave is also going to be answering some questions where he can, and anything that's on that parking lot, I know he's going to take and use for future use as well. You also have an agenda. It's a pretty vague agenda. I'm going to stick to this agenda as much as possible, but I'm more importantly going to make sure that you understand what we're doing. So if we need a little bit more time with what we're doing today with data, not a problem, because I'm going to go ahead and move it over to day 2 where we will have extra time. So I want to make sure, again, today is the most important day that you understand everything that we're doing and how to dig through there. Now, the next document is going to be a slide deck. I promise you this is not a slide deck presentation. In just a few minutes, you're going to be logging in live to the program if you haven't already, and we will definitely be working live. I will refer to the slide deck for a couple of reasons. One is I want you to have a visual before we jump in, because it can be a lot at one time. So if you can see it first and then you can do it, it sometimes makes it a little easier. As well as it's a good resource for you as a turnaround trainer to have this at your fingertips and use for your trainings for your teachers as well. The last 2 documents is a learning guide and training resources. The training resource guide is pretty self-explanatory. It's going to help you as a trainer to use it for redelivery. But the learning guide is going to be very, very helpful, especially if you're someone that likes to take notes. I'm a note taker, so I like to have as many notes as I can when I'm learning new things. I'm not going to discourage that, but I'm going to tell you that this guide here was very well thought out from the company. Definitely had teachers, educators in mind, because they know that we want to see things, but we don't have a lot of time, and we don't want someone handing us a document saying to go read 240 pages of something to figure it out. So the table of contents will bring you right to whatever subject area you're looking for. But you'll notice that there's some parts here where you have some talking points if you're redelivering, some things to get people to think about. We'll do a couple of those today as well. And then you also have a lot of screenshots. So I'm just scrolling through this quickly so you can see all the pages are laid out the same way. A little bit of an explanation, some tips. Those are usually some things that sometimes we cover in a training, sometimes we don't, just little extra snippets. And then a lot of different visuals for you, including where they may be numbered for step-by-step directions. So make sure you utilize this particular document in the future. It will help you. Don't feel like you have to have that open right now, because everything I'm going to do in there, we're going to take it live. So last piece is that slide deck. So on the slide deck, like I said, I'm going to run you through a few of these slides now. We're going to go ahead and get logged in. We're going to review the Launchpad, and then we're going to jump into the data. While you're looking at this particular slide deck, the way it's set up, you'll have in teal, kind of a blue-green color, training resources. This will direct you to any learning guide pages or training pages that you may have for that slide, for that content, and then the learning guide as well. I'm going to skip a lot of those little slides. We're on virtual, so I don't want you to worry about that part. I do, again, want to encourage you to ask me questions, and don't be afraid to stick some questions in chat as they come. All right, so why are you here? Why did Dr. Dave have you sign up? What is this program? If you're not sure, let me just give you a little bit of an explanation. So the hope here is that eduClimber is going to make your lives easier. And it's not just another thing for you to do. It's not another thing thrown at you. It's not another something in your day. It's really meant to be an easier way for you to retrieve data on students so that you're not going to multiple places. So the creator of this program was a school psychologist, and she'd been creating a lot of spreadsheets, as I'm sure many of you have, either now or in the past. And her husband was, lucky for her, an engineer, software type guy, and he's like, oh, I can make that easy. So they created eduClimber. So it's a cloud-based data system. It's basically a virtual warehouse. It's all the information put on the cloud so that you can go in, retrieve it, all in one place. My guess is that now you're probably having to go to those particular vendors to look for that information, go to an assessment vendor, go to your school information system. If it's another assessment, you might have to go to another platform. eduClimber is meant to pull all of that into one place. So it's one platform, everything lives there, and it's a chance for you to go pull it all at once. So it's kind of like those Cume folders that we use or used to use, that's all in one place on software at your fingertips. And it'll actually give you a lot more information than what you typically had. So we're going to dig into all of that today. A little bit about the eduClimber's essentials. What we want you to know is to learn how to navigate through it. All of your databases in one place. We're going to learn how to interpret that data, and we're going to take time to discuss how you may want to roll it out. We will spend a little bit of time at the end of the session on that, if not today, over the next 2 or 3. And that is something that I'll let Dr. Dave help guide with too, because he will be able to better direct you on how this is intended to roll out in your district. All right, so I just want you to think about this question for a minute. You don't have to respond in chat. I just want to throw it out there, put it at the top of your mind as we start to log in and dig into the data that you do have. Of the learning plan for our sessions together, I want you to think about what you may be most excited to learn about. So you've heard a little bit about eduClimber. You may not know anything at all. This might be the first time you're really even digging into it. Maybe you've had a chance to log in and you've explored it a little. Regardless, from what you do know, even if it's very little, I want you to just take a moment, reflect and think, what do I want to get out of this? And how is it really going to make my life easier? I want you to know that it will offer you a lot of things in a more efficient way, in a much simpler way. All right, so first thing, I'm going to go ahead and skip through that first activity. We're going to go ahead and log in. So I am going to go ahead and get you on that screen. You're going to log in now. I know you, Dr. Dave emailed me yesterday saying that it does not work through School City at this time. So what I want you to do is I want you to go through educlimber.com. I'm going to put it in the chat in case you just want to click it, make it easier. If you click that website, you can copy paste it into your browser. It will bring you to a slide. I'm going to go pull that particular slide up so you have something to review. Give me just 1 second. Once you get there, it is going to ask you for a district ID. I'm going to go ahead and put this on your screen and just, oh, Dr. Dave, you got it. Perfect. Let me go ahead and put the slide there too, just to show you the visual of it and how to access it. Okay, can you guys see that screen with a red sidebar? Perfect. I just want to make sure it didn't highlight it on my side. So go to educlimber.com, go to your district number 2031, and then you should be able to, Dr. Dave, are they going to put their username and password this way?
Yes, so your username is first name dot last name. If you have 2 last names like Cruz Santiago, it'll be Cruz space Santiago. and then click that little forgot password button, and it should be your @Osceola Schools email. If you don't get the email right away, try it again with your old @osceola.k12.fl.us email account.
And I am going to pause to make sure everyone gets logged in, because it's really important you're logged in. Like I said, this is going to be you clicking around today, digging into the software. It's not something that you're just going to sit and listen to or watch on a slide. So please make sure you can log in. If you can't, either come on live or send it through chat so that we can make sure to get you logged in. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a second. And if anybody has any problems, please let us know. All right, so I'm going to assume everybody's good here. Everyone's logged in. Again, if you have any problems, it's absolutely okay to ask. Just send that message to Dr. Dave. He'll get you in because it's really important you're able to click around and follow along. All right, so let's go ahead and jump back in, and hopefully you're able to get logged in. Once it's straight with the school city, you'll be able to go that route. This slide will stay in your slide deck for you for future use. And then from here, you should be on a screen that looks something like this. It won't be exact, but it will have 6 boxes. You won't see students so much. You may not see some incidents visualizing, but you'll see 6 boxes. They won't have red around them. That's just for this PowerPoint presentation here to make those stand out. I'm going to go over each of those 6 boxes live. So some of these slides I'm just going to roll through because a lot of this I'm going to do with you. Again, I'm going to encourage you to feel free if you want to click and see different things. It's okay to do that. Only if you feel comfortable enough. If you're not, just follow along with these slides and we're going to go live. To the top right, you're going to see your picture. If you click that picture and open up a box, you'll see your name with your email address, and you should see your district. There's going to be a few of these options. You may not have them all, but I will go through those. The first one I want to show you on the slide before we go into it together is the user preference bar. User preference is going to open up another box. When we click user preference, we're going to see a box that looks like this. This is actually an outdated slide, so we're going to see a couple of extra things. They won't matter. What I want you to know here are 2 different things that we're going to focus on. One's going to be top secret mode, and the other is going to be show minimum and maximum lines. So you're not going to work in top secret mode, but I am. And so just to let you know what top secret mode is and what you have at your fingertips, if you choose to toggle top secret mode, it allows you to be able to hide students' pictures and names. So if you're having to present this out to a school board, maybe you're in charge of presenting at that school board meeting and you've got a public audience, so we don't want to violate FERPA guidelines. We need to hide that information. Maybe you're presenting in a faculty meeting and you don't want to put that information out to the whole faculty because not all those teachers touch those particular students. Whatever the case is, it allows you to keep that information more confidential, but still share the data, which is obviously the whole important reason of what you're doing. So when you turn top secret on, it'll take any faces or any names that are associated with scores, and it puts it into a hidden mode. So it'll turn into icons for pictures and randomized numbers for names. And there's no order to those names. So it's not like they're just alphabetical in the numerical order. It's random numbers so that the focus is now on the data and not the students themselves. I don't want you to work in top secret mode because it will hide student data from you. I want you to see everything that you can possibly see today. I will work in that though, so that since we're recording, I don't identify particular students. For default school and default data wall, we're not going to use those just for the sake of explaining, because sometimes it's just curiosity. If you had multiple schools, everything that you see on your Launchpad is giving you information based on the students you have access to. If you did a default school, that means you'd have to have more than one school. And that's where you can say, I just want one school to populate on my Launchpad, not several. So that's something that we're not going to work in today. We're going to actually dig in and drill to certain schools that you want to see or that you're at. So I want you to just ignore default school and default data wall. The last one that I do want you to toggle, and I'll do this live with you, so it's okay if you're just watching. We're going to turn on the show minimum and maximum lines. That's because by default, all assessments based on the type of assessment it is and what it's bringing through will give you an average score. So you have a district average score. You may have a 50th percentile or maybe a 25th percentile. Again, it will depend on that assessment. When we talk about grade book, so all of your grades that go into your SIS right now in focus, those scores are being moved over to eduClimber, but those are just going to be basic grades or standard scores. So you're not going to have the tracking that a national assessment may do. What you're going to see for those scores is just one line that says a district average. Again, everything you see, and I really want to take a minute to explain this, everything that you're able to see is based on your permissions. So if you were sitting next to your colleague who was at a different school, your screens are going to look different because you are only allowed to see those students that you've been given charge to see. Those students are typically who you touch in a day. So a principal might have access to the entire school and all students, whereas a teacher will only have access to her or his 20, 30, 40 students, high school, 100 students, whatever those numbers are in SIS for them. So when we're talking about these average scores, they're based on those students that we are allowed to see. When we turn on the minimum and maximum, it's really helpful visually for an educator to see of the students that I am allowed to visualize, that I'm allowed to dig into their data. Where does my student fall in the highest range or the lowest range? How far are they deviated from that district average? So it gives you a different look at the data that you have access to, and it really gives you a better idea of where your students stand overall. So we will go turn that button on in just a moment. The last thing I'm going to say is when you hit save, your screen does blink out, so don't panic. It just kind of refreshes and comes back. Now, there's two other options on that bar that you don't see here in the slide deck. I'll show you those on the live presentation, but that's nothing to worry with. So what I want you to do is if you'll just take a quick moment and tell me, when do you see using top secret? You can throw it in chat. When do you think would be a good time for you to use top secret? What do you think a benefit may be? What are your thoughts there? And I'll pause for just a moment for you to throw that into chat. Great answers. Definitely lots with PLCs, SAC meetings, and that's where I was going to mention that last one as well. If you have IEP meetings, if you're talking about student services on do those students need more services than what they have, sometimes you might be in a meeting where you're presenting to other teachers or other educators or other people in that room that don't necessarily touch others. You can always have them into that top secret mode. So great ideas. Thank you guys all for sharing what you had put in the chat with your thoughts. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and show you again just a quick visual, and I'm going to go live with these. So I promise we're getting out of this slide deck soon, but I want you to see visually the bar that you see appear when you click the top right on your picture. You're going to see a few other options. You may not have all of these. So I want to go over just a couple real quick. This is no longer called Help Center. They call it Knowledge Base. I believe they just changed it last week. So we'll go over that together. This is just like basically a library for you to know, or for you to have to be able to go find information where you want to know a little bit more, maybe further than what the learning guide even has. They also have an area for you to go for small videos to watch. They're real short videos on specific things you may look up. So I'll take you there live in just a minute. For these three, submit, ticket, chat with us, and switch user, you probably do not see those. Those are going to be advanced level permissions. The reason that those are advanced level is pretty much for the reason they say. If we're talking about submitting a ticket to eduClimber, we don't want anybody in the district to be able to do that because Dr. Dave is ultimately in charge of this. So he needs to know first, and he wants to make sure that he's addressing it. It may have to do with eduClimber, it may not. So submit ticket is going to be one of those that it's going to be more advanced permission for him and his team. Chat with us. Again, we don't want you to chat outside your server, so there's just restrictions on that. But that would allow those people that are in charge of the program to be able to chat directly within certain hours with representatives from eduClimber to help and give assistance to different things. And then switch user. Switch user is a great feature. It's great if you're trying to help others, but again, it's typically left for that team, for the people behind the scenes, because if you have this permission, you would be able to see anyone's account across the entire district, which means you could get into other student data where you may have nothing to do with it. So those are not typically permissions that you will see. If you're in a role that you think you might need one of those, that's where I would encourage you to reach out to Dr. Dave and have that conversation with him or your supervisors, because they would ultimately be the ones to give you that permission. As far as these others, the top two here that I skipped, you won't be using those. And classic view and user guides, that's an old platform view that is actually going to be going away any day now. It has to do with an older version of the platform that we no longer use. They just kind of held off for a while because of COVID. We're going to see a bell with a red dot and a number within it. These are all of the newest releases that they've added features to eduClimber. And it's basically based off of people like yourselves using eduClimber and saying, I really wish it could do this, or I really wish I could see this. They do listen, and you'll see how often when I show you that they go in and they update and they do different things in that platform for you. So I would always encourage you to send your ideas in. They're always listening and looking. You'll have a mail icon with a little letter. It'll let you know of any upcoming or any messages that you've received. It could be just within the platform, or it could have been that you received these through an email. Once we get to these, they'll make more sense. I think we hit these on day 3 or 4 for meetings and action items. So we're going to kind of put those off, but I just want you to know what this box is, and we will come back to it directly when we deal with those modules. I'll show you the DMs live in just a moment, and then we'll go over the left navigation pane. So from here, I want to go ahead and go live into the program with you. Make sure you get in, kind of walk you through it for a minute. All right, so everyone should be on their home screen. If you were clicking and you're not sure where you are anymore, no problem, don't panic. I want you to come to the top left where it says eduClimber, and I want you to click where that little bar graph icon is. If you notice, if you hover over it, it highlights white. It brings you back to your home page in case you were clicking around just kind of looking. That's okay. So while we're over here to the left side, I want you to notice if I go straight down that left pane, you've got some different icons there. These are different modules within the platform. If you hover over it, it'll tell you the name of them. And we will go through these over the next 3 days. Some of these we may not hit because they are advanced features. So I don't want you to worry with them, but you still do have access. So if you've heard about them, or if you feel like you really would like to play around in those, you may have some access to do that. You definitely can click just to go take a peek. And if you find that it's something that you want for a future training, talk to Dr. Dave, and they can always look into getting some more trainings in place for you for those. We're going to come back up to that top left, and we're going to go across that teal bar to the right. District grading class is going to be the first place that we're going to go in just a moment. So I'm going to skip those for just a minute. If you don't see a district tab, I don't want you to worry. That doesn't mean that something's broken. We're going to dig in just a moment to the data, and you'll be able to see if in fact you do need it, or if you have it, what does it mean? We're going to move all the way to the far right. So these were the things that we saw in that slide deck presentation a minute ago. The first one is a calendar. The calendar is exclusive to just eduClimber. If I use any of these 5 features within eduClimber, as I create dates or events with these, they'll automatically populate on this calendar. This is not a calendar I can put events into. I can't go and say, let me go create an event here. This is strictly just for any eduClimber features of these 5 to the top left that would be populated on this calendar. So it's just basically some reminders. There's your mail icon. The DMs are just simply meant for you to be able to share a message to someone directly with another user in eduClimber. So if I wanted to go ahead and say, I want to send a quick message to Dr. Dave, I would go in, find his name, put his name in there, search, send my message, and he could respond to me directly. Now, with that being said, I do like to caution that anything that you say as far as other students, you want to be very careful with, only because if a parent requests those records, anything with that student's name could be pulled from this platform. So you'll want to just gently remind teachers, I know they know that, but sometimes we just forget, or we feel like we can kind of freely talk. You don't want to do that so much here. And then you have your bell icon. That's where you have the red dot with a number in it, more than likely a 2. You may have more, just depending on your login. This is where you'll see any updates. So you can see in August, they had one on the 26th. It's typically every Friday, the 19th, the 5th. Sometimes they skip some Fridays. All of this is new to you right now, so I wouldn't worry too much about going in and trying to read all of this. But as you start to use the program and you do get familiar with the features, I would pay attention to that little bell icon, because you never know, it could be something that you've been thinking about and now it can do it. And so it'll make your life a little easier. And then finally, I want you to click here to the top right. If you didn't do it with me when we were going through the slide deck, that's perfectly fine. But if you will click now, the top right where your picture is, you'll see your name, email, and your school. I want to go here to user preference first. So what I want you to have toggled is this one button that says show minimum and maximum lines on a benchmark chart. So I'm going to pause for just a second to make sure that you have your screen looking like mine. So toggle just show minimum maximum lines on a benchmark chart. And then I want you to hit save. I'm going to hit top secret just because I'm working in a recording and I don't want to show those students' names or faces. And again, we covered all of these features: check in, check out, change password, don't worry with. Knowledge base, just to show you, if you click into that live, let's say you're home and you're trying to learn a little bit more about eduClimber and you say, you know, I'd really like to know more about top secret mode. It's almost like it's its own search engine. So if you type into this your keywords and you hit enter, it'll give you any articles or anything that comes up with top secret mode. So along the left, you'll see different places to click into to find out more information. So don't be afraid to use that anytime that you feel stuck or you just want to know something more. Again, it's knowledge base. You won't have more than likely submit request, chat with us, or switch user. All right, so 6 screens on your Launchpad. The top left is kind of like your to-do list. The center and far right are interventions. We'll get to those on day 4. Your visualizations for incidents and attendance, we'll get to those today. Just to mention while we're here, incidents always 2 weeks at a time. So once incidents are going to be loaded in, you'll start to see those populate. Attendance, you'll see each month as a line graph. It does not follow 2 weeks at a time. Any students that you search, up to 20 will appear here. That just makes it quick and easy for you to go click into a student if you're working with them on a daily basis. It's kind of like your phone history log. It'll just keep surfacing, repopulating those last 20 calls. Well, these will be your last 20 students. And then the far right bottom box, quick links. Those are things that are just meant to take you to a quicker, easier click than going into one of these side panels and looking for it. The only 3 I want you to be worried with for these next 4 days with training is user tag manager, student tag manager, and collections. And we will get to those on day 2. You might not see program evaluation or SLO. Again, it'll be dependent on your permissions. So if you don't see those, I don't want you to worry. All right, now, time we've been waiting for. Let's go ahead and head over to the top left of your screen. If you have a district tab, I want you to click it. If you only have grade in class, you can feel free to click your grade. It's going to run somewhat similar to district, but I'm going to show you both of these. We're going to dig into district. We're going to work in grade for the rest of the training. So even if you have district, we're really going to be digging into the grade tab. I'll show you class, but we're not going to work in there. Once I show you a few things here with the district in the grade tab, I'm going to give you time to work together in breakout sessions so you can explore it a little bit more. So again, if you have district tab, feel free to click it with me. If you prefer to watch me first, we will do this more than once. So I don't want you to feel like you have to click if you're more of the person to want to watch and see it first and then go click. I will do this more than once with you. So let me clear my stuff because I was going and looking for some things there. Okay, so you're going to have a rocket ship in the center. I want you to come over to the first oval. And what we're going to do is we're going to tell eduClimber through these different choices, going from left to right at the top, what is it you want me to go find? So you get to tell eduClimber, what is it you're looking for? When it comes to data for your students, what do you want to go and retrieve? Well, we're going to go a year backwards. Why are we going a year backwards? Because 22-23 is just starting. You probably don't have any assessments. And if you do, they're probably still in the works or being finalized. That there's nothing in 22-23 yet for you to pull up. Now, once you take those first assessments, you get to that first quarter of grades, you're going to have assessments that are housed in 22-23. But I want you to think right now, what do I even have that would be accessible to me? It would only be 21-22 data at this time. So click 21-22 for that year. I do want you to choose a school because there's so much data in here. Even if you had full district access, it's not going to pull everything up. So I want you to choose either your school. If you have district, you will probably only have one school. Maybe you have more, again, depending on your role. I'm going to just choose the group that says elementary schools. Now you don't have to choose grades. So for district, this is the difference. So I'm going to say don't choose grades because I want you to see if you have a district tab, I want you to see how it's different from a grade tab. So if I did click all grades, if I have a box in front of anything, just like I do for schools, there's a box, grades, there's a box. That means I can choose 1 or 2 or 3. I can choose multiple grades. Or I can leave it open, and dependent on what I have for schools, those grades associated with those schools will populate. Categories are the different content areas that are housed within eduClimber that those assessments are put under. So you'll have literacy, math. It will be dependent on your grade level and what assessments have been loaded if you have behavior, science, social studies, specials, or combined performance. So for now, I'm going to suggest you stick to literacy and math until you get a chance to kind of dig more into your schools, your assessments, and your categories to know what's there. If you want to leave it open, you can do that as well. It'll show you on this left side any of those content areas that are available for those particular grades or schools you chose. And for Assessment Suite, I want you to leave this open. The reason is if you choose an assessment that hasn't been loaded yet or doesn't have anything to do with that grade level, you're not going to have anything come up for your search. You're going to see that rocket ship just sit there in that center. For example, if I chose ACT, and yes, I'm being very hypothetical now because I do know that you know this, but if I did choose ACT, say it's a different assessment that I don't know if that school or grade took. ACT is not taken in elementary school, so I'm not going to get any kind of a search back. It's going to come up empty because there's nothing for eduClimber to go and retrieve. So until you're really familiar with what is loaded in your system right now for your school or grades, I'm going to suggest you leave Assessment Suite open. I want you to skip the filters button and go directly to search. Dr. Dave is putting in chat that if you are not seeing any grades or all of your grades, if you don't see your school, please let him know, because that's going to have to do with some permissions and some things we might need to set in the background.
Yeah, Andrea, everyone on this call should have permission to see all the grades in their school. So if you're seeing just fifth, for example, let me know. It's like a 30-second fix.
Dr. Dave, will they have a district tab necessarily or no?
Very few people on this call will have the district tab.
Okay.
They will mostly be restricted to their own school. You might find if you go back a year that you can see 7 schools. That's because at some point you were in the classroom with a student who is now at another school. So you can just see that one kid if you've got permission to see as a coach all years.
Yes. Okay, perfect. So to emphasize a little bit more, like Dr. Dave just said with the district tab, just to kind of clear that up too with what he's saying. If you happen to see district tab, it does not necessarily mean you have district access to every school with every grade level in your whole district. You could be a principal at one school and you have access to see that whole school, just as an example. So I would have a district tab, but when I go to choose here for school, I'm only going to see my one school. Because I have all grades and all access to that one school, it will typically put a district access here, but that does not mean that I will see the list that you're seeing on my screen with every school. It just depends on permissions. So if you feel like you're not seeing what you need to see for your students, and we're going to keep digging into this, so it's going to start to come to you if you realize, wait, I'm not seeing who I need to see. Please let us know in chat, and we can make sure that gets fixed. And that's part of this training too. You're going to find that even if you're responsible to do any kind of turnaround training, those things are going to come up. It's just natural, especially for a district as large as yours, that some people might be missing something to be turned on. Because if you remember what I said from the beginning, it is intentional that it's the most restrictive. We don't want to put more information out there than needed. We're going to back it up, take out most people from having most permission, and then grant it as it's needed. So sometimes it's just a quick toggle of a year or a school. So once you've clicked search, if you have a district tab, you should see some assessments come up. So I'm going to scroll through my screen. Again, you might not see as many, but you will see some different bar graphs with some colors to them. Now, the only difference that you're going to see between district and grade is that you will be able to choose your school or schools depending on permission, and you can see all grades at one time. So for example, I'm going to use the map assessment just because it's a good visual, where I am able to see all grade levels in one view for all elementary schools. So I can see K all the way through 8th, any of those students that took that map assessment for each window in one screen. Now, I'm going to now go to the grade tab, and we're going to talk about some differences there. So that's the biggest feature with district, all grade levels side-by-side comparison. I want everybody to click grade tab. So everyone should be here in grade. You're going to see a rocket ship here in the center. Very similar search to district. So I want you to go to that first oval. I want you to choose 2122. For schools, I want you to go and search your school. I'm going to pick an elementary school myself. Now notice if you have more than one school, you have boxes in front, so you can choose one or more. Now look at the difference between this grade and when we were in district. I can only choose one grade level here. just as the name says, grade. I cannot choose more than one grade. So that's a difference between district and grade. I cannot see all grades side by side in the grade tab. I'm going to go ahead and choose third grade here. Another difference is this next oval. We did not have a second oval for years. What this does is this allows you as a teacher, as a coach, as a principal, whatever your role is, to now see, okay, I'm looking at my last year's student data. I teach fourth grade this year, but I have to go back a year. It's early in the beginning of the school year. I don't have data. So I'm looking at them and how they performed last year. Very helpful because I would like to see what I'm getting in my class. But here's an extra feature. How did they do in second grade? How did they do in first grade? Depending on how far back your district has loaded assessments, it can go up to 5. Typically, it's 3. You would be able to see any cohort data on that group of students. So thanks, Dr. Dave. So 3 years. So right now, as you start to get through this school year, after you have 22, 23, you'll have 4 years. This is really helpful. It obviously is restricted to, first of all, did the student take those assessments? And secondly, was the student in the school or the school system that the data could be retrieved to be loaded in? So there are some little things that might inhibit you from being able to see certain students, but overall, you will be able to see your students that you can touch in a day, those students' data up to 3 years. Now, I'm going to take those years off right now. I'm going to give you a chance to go play with that in just a minute. But for this view, I'd like to keep it lateral just because it's a lot to see at first. It's a lot to dig into. I want you to keep it at 21-22 school year. You can leave categories open. I would leave assessment suite open, skip filters, and hit search. So you should see some different bar graphs now based on that search. If you don't see bar graphs, I need you to tell me because we're going to start digging into these bar graphs now. All right, so I think everybody's good. All right, so from this point, we're going to work in the grade tab. If you have district, I still want you to switch to grade because of where we're going to go with it. If you see class, you stay where you are. I'm just going to quickly show you. This is meant for each individual teacher. So I don't work in this because it would have to be under an actual teacher, but it's the same process. I go back a year. I'm going to go find my name as a user, which you're typically only going to see your name, by the way. You're not going to see multiple unless you have permission. I would choose my course, my period, again, cohort years, and hit search. The difference between grade and class is as a teacher, this allows me to see, first, I just want to see the course I teach. So if I teach Algebra 1 and Geometry, if I just want to see Algebra 1, I can click just Algebra 1. Maybe I have 3 sections of Algebra 1. Maybe I only want to see 1 section or all 3 sections. So in other words, I'm able to aggregate or disaggregate these classes that I teach and my students on how I want to visualize their data here. That's the only difference between the grade and the class. So again, we're going to work in the grade tab. And what you should see are some boxes with bar graphs. The top left of each of those bar graphs or each of those boxes will be the name of the assessment. So I have here FSA, grade book. I'm in literacy, by the way. If you're a math person, go to math. Grade book, map. Those are the 4 boxes I'm able to see. Now, something to mention here with gradebook, Dr. Dave put into that chat that right now, if that gradebook grade was an O, S, N, or U, they're working on a fix for that. So you might see some gray bar graphs. Don't worry about that right now and don't focus on the gray bar graphs. Just focus on those bar graphs that have color to them. And specifically, it's good if you have a map assessment, which I think you have up through 11th grade, if I'm not mistaken, when I looked earlier, it was maybe 10th or 11th. You can go to that map data. Otherwise, you can use grade data as well for what we're going to do. So a couple of things. We see some bar graphs. Okay, that's great. So what do I do with these? Well, we're going to dig in. I'm going to focus on this particular assessment right here at the bottom right of my screen. I want you to pick one that you like, whichever one you like. Don't overthink it. I want you to go where it's got this double arrow, and I'm going to expand it. I want you to expand yours. What that does is it removes everything else from our view, so we don't have to be distracted by what bar graph we're working on. So all I did was expand that bar graph. I'm working on map reading. If I hover over any portion of the bar graph, it gives me some statistics. Third grade, 21-22 fall. This one's going to be winter, and this one is spring. Don't click anything yet, just hover. It's going to tell me how many, the actual number of students. So I had 60 below out of a total of 95, and it gives me the percent, 63.2. I'm going to jump over here to winter just to show you the difference with those summaries. So now I'm in third grade, 21-22 winter for map. I had 27 students that were at or above out of 99, percent's 27.3. So they're giving you the stats there so you don't have to figure them. Okay, that's great too, but you want more. So let's talk about these line graphs real quick. This legend at the bottom can be toggled on or off. So I can turn on those bar graphs or turn them off out of view for a minute. I'm going to reassure you one more time, you cannot mess this up. Do not be afraid to click things here, because you're always going to get back to your original screen. It always defaults back where you were. So you don't even have to try to remember, what did I click? How do I get it back? Because whatever I do, if I click off of that box and I reopen it, everything goes right back where it was. You can't mess this up. So I'm going to untoggle those bar graphs so that we can just look at these line graphs. Remember, we set those minimum and maximum scores. Well, this is where they would appear. So my maximum score is a 218. Again, I'm just hovering, I'm not clicking. But for that third grade 21-22 winter map assessment, the student that had the highest score, it could be more than one, but the highest score was 218. 218, 210 for spring. The lowest score was a 147, 146 for fall, 142 for spring. So I'm just hovering to see that. You're going to see a little hand that makes you think you can click into it. You're actually clicking into the bar graph if we click. So we're going to hold off on clicking just for a second, but you're not clicking into the line graph. The line graph is just meant to be a visual. So here's my district average, and then this is the one that's associated with MAP, and it's that 20th percentile national mean. So these average scores, national means, are dependent on the assessment and on the students that you have. Now, I'm going to put these below benchmarks back on the bar graphs, and I want to point something out, because this will oftentimes get these people that are really looking and thinking about this. Why would the lowest score be way up here and not down here? I know it bothered me when I was first doing it. Like, why is it way up? Shouldn't it be way down here if it's the lowest score? Yes, but what eduClimber did was, instead of giving you two separate boxes of graphs to look at and analyze, they said, we're going to just superimpose these two different things. So these are our line graphs, these are our bar graphs, but they're different. They're just superimposed on one screen. So what I mean by that is these line graphs follow this y-axis to the right for scores, and of course your x-axis for your benchmark windows. If I look at just the bar graphs, these bar graphs are following the left y-axis of the number of students and then the benchmark. So they really have nothing to do with one over the other. It's just so that you don't see two different boxes. Okay, something else I want you to go and see. I'm going to give you a minute, and I'm going to pause so you can play with this for just a moment before I put you in breakout sessions. The top right, you see a 3-dot menu. It's next to a thumbtack. I want you to click the 3-dot menu and open this box. There's some choices here that you can click. Don't be afraid to click them. You're not messing anything up. First one says view performance levels. If you click it, I now have a better breakdown of what my students, or where my students are and what they've scored. So before, I only had at or above and below. I just had that hard cutoff of where they were pass fail in a sense. But I know my kids, and I know there's a good portion right here in this top part of the red that they're really my tier 2 students, and they're almost in that green. Well, let's go see. 3-dot menu, view performance levels. Sure enough, it's an idea, it's not exact, but these are basically my tier 2 students more than likely. Here's my tier 3, my tier 1s are up here, but it really lets me see the breakdown now of that score. Again, this is on this assessment. It's going to be different for every assessment. Some assessments may only have 3 different breakouts.
Can I say something really quick, Andrea?
Yes, please.
First of all, for those of you looking at the NWA data last year, these are those 5 quintiles that we discussed. So that red bar, that is the tier 3 range. That's the 1st to 20th quintile, and then the 21st to 40th. And then, Andrea, I don't know if this is something you're planning to show them in a second, but right now you're looking at the college proficiency assessment in the top right. And we have a bunch of other assessments in MAPS. So if you wanted to look at like which students met their projected growth range or separate them out by growth, there are other ways of breaking down this map data as well.
Yes, and thank you for pointing that out. Sometimes I show that and sometimes I don't, depending on districts. So yes, so I'm going to kind of enhance what Dr. Dave said as well. And for anybody that missed how to see those different colors, let me back up for a second. Let's redo this. So you should be on your search. You see some boxes. I want you to choose a box. I just chose the map assessment because it gives so much more information than gradebook, but it doesn't matter. I'll just expand the gradebook for just a minute just to show you. No matter what assessment you choose, I want you to go to the top right 3-dot menu. I want you to click it open and I want you to go to view performance levels, and that's how you're going to get those different color bands. So this is for gradebook. This is what's coming in through Focus for 3rd grade. You're welcome, Melanie. Exceptional, above, average, low, failed. So these are set by your district on how it should be seen. We haven't clicked in anything yet. We're going to dig deeper, but I just want to go a little bit slow here just to kind of get you familiar, get you situated. I'm going to come back to my map one. Again, I choose map. If you have map, I'm going to encourage you to choose map, at least just for right now, because you're going to get a lot more out of it than gradebook with where we're going. So to go back to the 3-dot menu, here's my different bands. I can change the chart type so I can look at it side-by-side analysis. Don't forget, you can turn those line graphs off, but every time I do something to change, those line graphs could come back. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Here's where I've got percentages, numbers. If you forget and you're like, oh my gosh, I clicked so many things, I don't know how to, I just want to get back to that main view. Just click the X and it's going to go right back where it was. It's not going to remember anything you do for this. You can't save this view, not right now. I'll show you a way later. But right now, it's always going to go back to that default view. So you can't mess it up. Just reopen it, re-expand. And then here's where you have your basic pass fail. Now, something Dr. Dave just talked about, he said there's different ways that you can view this assessment. This is the defaulted band. This is just saying this is where we look at it on a national level for that college proficiency, the 65th percentile. Let's say you're looking at, did they meet projected growth? If you, and you can choose any of these, I'm just going to pick that one. If I choose that, you're going to see some gray. Those gray bars are just saying that there was no target for those students. So that's the difference in your views, is what is the information that's going to be visualized? What is it giving back to you? So just be aware that there may be some different views. I can still go to that 3-dot menu and view different performance levels, but it might stay the same depending on what I chose here to the top right. If I look at map growth, I will see some more broken out bands here. But again, I have a gray portion there. So you can take a minute and look at those. Feel free to click around while I'm talking about it. You have smarter balanced here for proficiency. Again, you can change that view to the at or above and below, just that hard cutoff, or view performance levels. So feel free to take a minute and just click around. You can't mess this up. change the view of what you're trying to visualize here. And no matter what you do, if you get lost and you don't remember what you've clicked or how to get back to that original one, just close it out here. Everything defaults back to its original view. Your district decides what's the default view, but you still have access to everything else that you might want to see in those particular assessments or with the visual bands. All right. If you have any questions right now, please feel free to ask. All right, this is what I want to do. I'm going to dig into these bar graphs, and then I'm going to put you into a breakout session to practice a few of these things. So what I want you to do is on your bar graph, I'm going to close out. You've got your search. You have some bar graphs that came up. I want you to choose one, again, like map, that has at least 2 or more windows. So what does that mean? 2 or more different testing windows, fall, winter, spring, like map has 3. If you only have gradebook, that's fine. What we're going to do will work with gradebook because you do have more than one. I don't want you to choose just one bar graph, like FSA, just one. I don't want you to do that. So if you have map, that's ideal. If you don't have map for some reason, go to your gradebook because it has 4 bar graphs. I want you to expand the view on that particular assessment. I want you to change it to view performance levels. And then I want you to click into any bar graph, any portion of it you pick, it doesn't matter. I clicked the bottom, I mean the top blue. So I'm going to show you that one more time just in case. So Michelle, good question. So I'm going to show what I just did again in just a sec, but let me answer Michelle's question. So if you change the first school year drop down to that current year, will it eliminate any students that have no longer been enrolled for this school year? Yes and no. It's going to eliminate what you can see because the student didn't take that assessment. Does it mean that you still can't see any data attached to that student? No, we're still going to be able to see historical data on students and everything they've done. We're going to get there in the next hour where I'm going to show you how to retrieve students' historical data through the student profile. So as long as you touch those students in a day, or you have access to those students, anytime you're clicking into an assessment, whatever assessment it might be, let's say that I teach student ABC. ABC did not take the end of the year test for FSA. If I click into this, I'm not going to find him or her. If my student ABC was here for the first part of the year, then their assessment is going to live in these bar graphs, but they're not going to be where they aren't in that assessment any longer. If I change the year and those students say I teach 30 students, 10 of them were not in my school or in the school district last year, then it's going to take those 10 students out because you just don't have data to populate on those students. It doesn't mean, though, that I can't see past data. So that's the only thing I want to stress with Michelle's question is that, no, you're not going to see their data because they're not there. They don't have it. But can I still see historical data that does live in the system on that student? Yes. So you're really going to start to be able to dig deep on these kids. And shortly, you're going to really get a lot of data overload. So Michelle, hopefully I answered your question, but I'm still going to keep focused on your question because I'm going to keep taking you deeper into that with other students as well. So I'm going to go back to those bar graphs for that assessment I chose, and I want you to choose that view performance level so you see the breakdown, and I want you to click on any portion of the bar graph, and you should see a screen that looks like mine. Few things I want you to know here. If you come right underneath the title of your assessment in the top left, I can easily switch bar graphs by these different tabs. I don't have to close out of the screen, say, okay, let me go look at these students that were low average and click there. You don't have to do that. Here's your fall, your winter, and your spring. Here's the other thing. Just because I'm looking at low average, because that's where I clicked, That doesn't mean that I have to click over here to the X and come back over here and review the different students that are in that portion. If I just come next to the word students and click the down arrow, I can very easily switch back and forth to different parts of that bar graph. Or I can click all. If I click all, what I want you to see here is that this is basically the bar graph that I see on that front page when I'm looking at just the data for just that bar graph. There's the red, the yellow, the 2 greens, and the blue, 2 blues. So that's the entire bar graph right there. It just took this bar graph and sliced each part of it into a fraction and attached it to a student with a score. So here's all of my students and that entire bar graph. You will see their name. I'm in top secret, just as a reminder. If you hover over that student's name, you will see their picture. If I'm in top secret, like I am, you're not going to see that. So you're safe here if you're showing data out to other people. You can't identify this beyond the school, the grade level, and the assessment with those results. Now, yep, question.
Hey, Andrea, I know that half of next week is tagging, but from here, could we just show them click the checkbox, tag students, and then put them into tier 3?
Yes, and actually, yes, I'm going to the checkbox right now. So I will mention tag here, even though we'll get into that on the next one. So one thing I do want to show you before I even talk about tag, choose one box. Don't choose 2, just one box. And I want you to notice that you see something populate to the right. If I choose 2, it's going to go away. So just choose one box in front of a student's name. Any test details, any score details associated with the assessment you chose would be here. So for MAP, for example, these are the things that the MAP assessment will track. That's different for every assessment. It's whatever that vendor, that assessment tracks. This one will go all the way down to test duration minutes, and it'll tell you what % was correct. So this is great for counselors. I know we had a couple of counselors. For counselors that are working with kids, maybe it's just strictly test anxiety. Sometimes, I'm not going to say it's in every case, we know that. Sometimes we can come right here, look at these minutes and go, oh, okay, I know what's going on, because this child's definitely more capable than being in the red. We know they're not truly a tier 3. Here's some minutes, gives you something to work with. You didn't have access to this typically prior to eduClimber. I'm not going to say you didn't at all, but I know for me, I used to have to go in print reports because the teachers couldn't log into MAP. They couldn't go find this themselves. So I oftentimes had to do a little bit more work just to get this to them. Now you have all of this just by clicking the box in front of their name. Now, what I want you to do, what Dr. Dave's talking about, is whatever you've clicked into, whatever bar graph you have, whether you're in MAP reading or you're in your grade book, we're going to go and tag the lowest group, your tier 3 students. So choose one of your windows. I would suggest fall or winter, just because spring you don't have quite as many, but you could do spring. We're just going to do this for a practice run here. I want you to choose next to students your low, because we're going to just go for that red. So I'm only showing red students here. As long as you're showing just red, you can click this top box and it grabs all of those students. If you're showing all students, then you need to just go in and you'll have to click each box with the red. It's a lot easier if you just go to low. When you click any box, even if it's just one or multiple, this box next to students will appear, and now it's clickable and it says tag students. So we're going to get into more with tag students on day 2, but just to explain a little bit here, what does that mean? What are we doing? Tag students is where I can take a group of students, anything in my imagination. And like I said, on day 2, we're really going to dig into some of those thoughts and ideas. But for right now, let's say I really want to look at my tier 3 students. I want to track them. I want to put them on what we call a tag. So I can go and filter my data to only track those tier 3 students through any kind of filtering I do. When I choose those boxes in front of those students' names, I would come to tag students. And we'll go ahead and walk through this, and then it'll be set for day 2. So I don't want to get too far off with going into too much depth, but we're just going to set it up. And when we get to day 2, this will make even more sense. We're going to go ahead and say, let's go back to 21-22. We'll go in and change all that on day 2 for the school year to change it. But because we're in 21-22 school year data, I want to go back to 21-22 for the moment. And Dr. Dave, you want them to create their own tag, right? You don't want them to put it onto a global, right?
No, they can. Yeah, we are going to have them use those global tags.
Use global.
For
Okay.
this. Mhm.
Perfect. And so it's going to depend on if you are in literacy or math. So if you're in reading, like I am, then you are going to choose, and you tell me if I'm wrong on this, Dr. Dave, tier 3 reading for this particular one.
You got it.
Okay, perfect. Now, again, if you chose math, make sure you don't choose tier 3 reading. You're choosing tier 3 math. If you don't see any of these tags, I want you to put it in chat. All right, so once you've done that, and in case I lost anybody, I'll go and repeat this. But once you've done it, you can hit save, and that's it. The box will go away. I'm going to repeat this just in case I lost anybody. So all we did was click into one of our assessments. I expand it. I wanted to go to that view performance level because I really want to see them broken out specifically into these different bands. If I choose any portion of any bar graph, it doesn't matter. I can change my views. Because I am going to look at, just for now, tagging my tier 3. We know tier 3 are those red students, the low students. So I only am showing red. If I scroll here up and down, it's just red. I'm going to click all of my students, go to this box next to the word low and say tag students. It's okay if you left it 22-23, but if you could put it in 21-22. Tell me I don't have security to tag students I've transferred. Okay, so Melanie, try putting it in 22-23. If it still doesn't work, it's probably a permission with the tags. So if you've already done it, that's fine. I prefer it in 21-22 because then I can show you how to copy tags over when we get there. But if you have to do 22-23, it's okay. I want you to choose the tag already built. It should have a little globe next to it, meaning that that's a public tag. Okay, it worked for 22-23. Perfect. Go ahead and do that, Melanie. It's fine. I'll still show you guys how to switch them over on day 2. So it won't be a problem. So I don't want you to hit new tag. Make sure whatever content you're in, I'm in reading. So I'm going to go tier 3 reading. Choose that one tag and I'm going to hit save.
And just to, give everyone some warm feelings to walk away with, you can pretty much assign all kids in your school tier 2 and tier 3 with those tags in about 15 minutes from my practice. So that should hopefully take what was a 30 to 50 hour project and bring it down to under 1 hour for you all this year.
And it'll be really awesome when we can go filter those students and you can start manipulating how you want to see them. So that's going to be really fun. I wish I could jump into it right now, but I have to show you some of this before we go there. So they want you for president, Dr. Dave. So we're going to get into
Michael.
A lot more fun.
He knows I'd let him
Michael.
fly the Top Gun. He knows I'd let him fly Tom Cruise's jet. That's why he wants me to be president.
Yeah. And I didn't even pay attention who that was coming from. I should have realized. Yeah, he speaks for everybody. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and show you again, if you're in MAP, this is going to work. If you had to choose grade book, what you're not going to see is sub skills. So I am going to leave tagging. I know it kind of almost makes you feel like you want more. I promise you're going to get more in day 2. It fits in day 2 more, but while we're here, it makes sense to do that here. And we're going to do even more tagging on that day. So I promise to come back to that. So bear with me because you're going to like some of the things I'm about to show you here too. So again, if you're in a MAP or a national assessment, you're going to see a button called sub skills. And I want you to click sub skills. Stay where you are. But if you happen to be forced to go to gradebook, and this is just if this is even the case, just to show you one way or the other. If I'm looking at grade book and I dig into a bar graph, I do not have sub-skills. So you're not going to see it. Why is that? Well, because grade books are just the grades that your teachers are putting in that you're putting in each quarter, right? They don't have sub-skills tied to that. They don't have those broken down components like a national assessment would. So you're going to be missing that piece. And that's okay if you only have that to work with. But if you have a national assessment at your fingertips, with more than one bar graph, not FSA, I'd like you to be able to do that. If you don't, it's okay. Again, I promise you're going to have a few minutes to start digging into this and do breakout sessions. And we're going to take a little break as well.
I will say, Andrea, if anyone wants to use FSA, if they set the assessments to be 2 years, last year and the year before, they'll get 2 bars because they'll get what the kids were in 4th and in 5th.
Yes, it might not help us with effectiveness so much, but yes, it'll show sub skills regardless. So right now I'm looking at sub skills. Again, bottom legend, you can turn these on or off for visualization purposes. So if you're just trying to isolate one particular sub skill, you can. This is just visual. If you hover over it, it gives you all the details in your summary box for winter, fall, and spring. It's just visual. I'm going to take you to the right and look at bar charts. So if you click over to the right on the other side of line chart to bar charts, now this looks just like what we were in. We just went a whole step deeper. So I want you to think of PLCs now. If I'm working on PLCs for map reading, I want to really dig into the sub skills. Where are my students struggling the most with sub skills? What particular sub skill are we going to focus on for this month or this quarter? Here's those sub skills: key ideas, language, craft, details by grade. Again, literacy text, some of those were informational or literary text, I should say, vocabulary. So I'm able to now get even more precise in what I'm looking at. So I'm going to back up. Here's my map reading. Click into any bar graph. Fast assessment only has 3 sub skills. Yes, and I think they're just the passages that you're going to see. Sub skills. I'm going to automatically see line charts to the top right, bar charts. And then I have the same ability to do what I've been doing all along. So if I just want to look at informational text, I can click in, see who these students are. I'm able to change that view performance level as well. When I click in, I always know what I'm looking at by that top left. If I click that one box, any assessments, any score details with that assessment appear to the right. So I just went just a layer deeper is all I did. I broke down from just overall map to informational text with map. Now, the last one I want to show you, and we will take a 15-minute break, and then we're going to come back and work in breakout sessions. The last one I'm going to show you is effectiveness. This is why you need to have more than one testing window. So when you click effectiveness right under sub skills, you're going to have a from window. I'm going to choose from the fall, and I'm going to go to winter in this case. So you have to come from one benchmark and go to another and hit search. What you're going to see now is a very colorful display from basically my fall bar, my bar graph here for fall, extreme left, to my winter bar graph to the extreme right. Everything in between is where my students either fell, stayed the same, or rose above. If you come over here to the top right, you'll see a light bulb. If I click that light bulb, it gives me a summary of all of my students, percent and actual numbers that moved up, stayed the same, or moved down. So if you have reports to do, here's a good summary of where your students went from the fall map window assessment to the winter. And even better, if I'm a teacher and I want to know, well, who's this student that went from being low to low average, rose 2 above? If I can isolate just that one curved bar graph or line graph, I should say, If I click it, it reveals that student. So let's say I want to track those students that I want to find some that went above. Let's say here for this high average. Let's say I'm looking at my high average students and they went above average. Maybe I'm thinking I want to keep an eye on this one or several students for gifted. Let's take it the opposite direction. Maybe they're on the verge, and I'm just, hypothetically saying here with this one, that let's say I'm looking to see if they're a gifted student. If I click into it, I can isolate that student or students' names. Click on here, go create a tag, gifted watch list. A tag can be anything you want it to be. So that's just an example of why I would want to not only search the student, but how I can put a tag to those students. Maybe the students fell too far below a certain level and you want to see why. Maybe you need the counselor involved. Maybe it's something besides just academics. Now, if you see NA, the bottom portion, there are 2 NAs. That means that those 2 students didn't take the assessment. Could be because they were gone or they just didn't take it. That's where if you click in, it will tell you the names of those students, so you could go in and make sure that that's correct and that something didn't go wrong. But that's a normal occurrence, that sometimes those students just either moved, they didn't take the assessment in the winter, whatever the case may be. They're still here so that those bar graphs don't constantly fluctuate with in and out. So this screen is really a lot of fun. Teachers typically love this because they are able to really see where my students are going, where have they been from one assessment window to another, start tagging those students. So it gives you a really good visual of where things are. So I'm going to do this. We are going to stop for just a minute. I'm going to ask first before we go on a break. Do you have any questions that are just you want to ask that are just lingering right now? Anything that you really want to get off your chest? All right. Sometimes people feel better asking questions in smaller groups. So when we get back, I'm going to do a 15-minute break now. When we get back, we are going to jump into, I'm going to give you a few things to think about, go into breakout sessions. I'm going to try to join you in some different sessions where I can jump in on those. And I usually do get lots of questions then. So I'll come back a few minutes early from our break in case you want to just talk to me while we're still on break. Or when we go to breakout sessions, I'm going to jump into as many groups as I can to answer questions there and give you a chance to really process this and play in it and understand it without me talking and without me showing you something different. So 15 minutes, I have, it's, let's see, 8:52 my time, 9:52 for you. So we will come back. Oops. Sorry, I'm losing my earpiece here. At say 9, my time is 9:05. Let's say, we're going to say, let's say 10:10. Gonna round it up. Give everybody a chance to check an email, walk away, use the restroom, whatever you might need to do. I'll put a timer up when we have 10 minutes left so you can peek at your screen and see where we are with time. So go take a mental break. I'm gonna hang around a few minutes now, definitely be on a few minutes early. And Melanie, I'm looking at your question now. I'm gonna respond to you on chat. Unless you just wanna talk, I'm gonna stay here as well. So y'all go take a break.
Andrea, just to let you know, I just emailed you the contract for the recording as well.
Okay,
It came
great.
in while we were
Perfect.
talking.
Perfect. I'll put it in your folder so it'll be there for future reference too.
Thank
Thank you, Dr. Dave. With the recording. stop recording for the break. So we're back in recording. Let's go to those breakout groups. Let's go play around in those bar graphs, look at sub skills, look at effectiveness. I'll jump in with you as many groups as possible. We're going to shoot for 10 minutes. It might go to 15. Keep playing around till you get that 1 minute warning. So I have on my time, it's 9. So you guys are 10, say 10:10. We're going to come back at 10:20, possibly a few extra minutes. And let's do about 4 to 5 in a group. So you should get a notice of what room to join. And I will take a minute and jump into a couple of those as well.
recorded. Being recorded.
We're waiting on just a few more people, so I'm going to give it just a sec. Let everybody get back. I'm going to add a couple of questions onto the parking lot that came up. I will answer some of these as well. So I'm going to kind of keep it as a frequently asked question. Okay, so one of the questions that came up, and I'll just address a couple of questions while people come back, and then I'm going to ask anybody that has questions that come up, even from what I say or that you had on your own. I want to make sure that you get a chance to ask those questions. So let me start with just a couple of things real quick. And again, I was able to get to every group, which I was really excited. I don't always get to do that. So of course I had, Dr. Dave on one and Michael on another, so that worked out. So one thing I want to address is are teachers able to get back? And if that person that asked this question, if I'm not doing a good job at re-explaining that question, please jump in, let me know if I've misunderstood in any way. For teachers, those teachers want to be able to go back and see data, specifically, those younger grades. So I'm just going to pick third grade here on my particular search that I have. Remember, in grading class only is where I can pull historical data. I can't do it in district tab. District tab does not have that second oval for the year, so I can't pick it there. But if I go to grade or class, I am able to go backwards a couple of years. So I could go back to last year, which if I'm looking at my third grade students, which would be in fourth grade right now. I know it gets kind of confusing because of the years we have, but there's no data in 22, 23. So I go back, I'm teaching fourth grade. I go back a year for third. I go back a year for second, and then go back another year for first. So once I choose this option and I hit search, what it's going to do, and feel free to explore this on your own under your schools as well now, because I know I kind of held you out there for a little while, so we knew what was, coming up on our own screens. Once this populates, I will be able to see that data. I might have to go drill down to just one school, just because of the amount of data it's pulling. Let me do that. I was trying to pull too much data. So let me go back a year. I'm going to pick just one school. Let's do Ventura Elementary, just because you guys had asked some questions before. I'm going to go to third grade. So I'm in last year. So these are technically fourth graders this year. I'm going to go second and first, and I'm going to go to search. So now the information, and this would apply for any teacher as well, as long as they have a tie to those students, they can see anything on those students. So I now am able to see any data in the past that's loaded into the system at this time. So right now under Ventura, so third grade last year, there's only 3 students. So I'm not sure if that's because data is still being loaded there, or if just those students took it. In 21, 22, I have 108.
That would be because second graders didn't take it the year before. Those are retained third graders who took it in third grade twice in a row.
Thank you, Dr. Dave. Those are things I won't know because they're so specific to each state or district. So thank you. So here I'm going to look over at this one for gradebook. Move that out my way. So for gradebook, as a teacher, I would be able to go and see. Again, these are my third grades from last year for each quarter. These are my second graders from 2021. And these are 1920. And I'm going to guess this might have to do with some retentions.
No, that's going to be the OSUNN.
Oh, okay.
We're missing any
That's
grades that are scored as an outstanding, satisfactory.
That's right.
that range aren't visualizing properly yet.
Perfect. Okay. And again, you guys know that as a district. If I go to map data, I'd be able to see 3rd grade, fall, winter, spring, 2nd grade, fall, winter, spring. And then first, I'm going to guess because you guys don't take that in 1st grade. So that's why. And these 3rd graders here, I'm going to say that they were retained because that's why you're showing 3rd and 2nd in 2021 for both. So you'd be able to drill into any of those. So as a teacher, all of these students, if they're my students, I would be able to see any of those students tied to me through SIS or given permission within eduClimber for me to dig into that data. And again, I got there by choosing past years. So hopefully for that person that asked that question, I addressed it. Next one was a question about student IDs. So the next place I'm going to take you all is the data wall. And that's where we're going to dig into some IDs. I know some people were already exploring with 3D.
Before we go there, Andrea, I have a question.
Yes.
If they have, so they all have the building level coach permission, can they, with that, do the assume user role for a classroom teacher?
The switch user?
Yes, by default, or I mean, I guess
only,
you can check the permission.
Yeah, I was going to say only if you gave them permission for that. And remember, if they have that permission, it allows them to go into any for the whole school district, any teacher.
Got it. Okay.
If you guys want to try, you could probably answer that question really quickly. If you guys want to go and look, click that top right box where we went in for user profile and see if you have the button that says switch user right here. If you do, throw it in chat and say that you do have it. Okay.
Looks like they do not have it then.
Okay.
Okay.
Dara said yes. You got one yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Anybody else? Well, why don't you tell me if you do have it? That might be better. If you have switch user, just throw that in chat for Dr. Dave. It's just quicker than him having to check each permission. So Dr. Dave, what I'm going to guess is Dara's permission might be different from the others. Okay. All right, and then there was the question with the student IDs. So let's do this. I want to go ahead and get to data wall, and this is where we're going to address those student IDs. So I'm going to kind of do a twofold here. We're going to start to work on the data wall. We're going to look at IDs, but before I go there, do you have any other questions about what we've done so far with the platform? Anything that is on your mind that you just are unclear with, you just want more information, anything at all? All right. So we're going to go ahead and move forward then. So only other thing, I am going to take a moment before we hit data wall. This is just to show you, you can click into it if you want. I just want you to know it's there. When we click into that bar graph, so far we've explored students, we've explored sub-skills, and we've explored the effectiveness graph. There were two others I didn't touch. They're basically ones that you might use here and there periodically. They will be in the slide deck for you to see visuals, and they'll have some information in the learning guide. They're so minor, I'm just going to explain them and we're going to move on. For longitudinal, this is where you're able to kind of break down your report by year, by grade, and by subgroup. So if I'm looking at 21-22 Ventura for 3rd grade, which is last year 3rd grade, this year 4th, if I choose report by, I can break this down by ethnicity. So I'd be able to see my different subgroups on this line graph. So again, it's just for visual purposes here. There's nothing to click into, but it does give you a visual. There's other places to see this as well. And as we start getting more into it, you're going to see more, but it is helpful for you to know that this is here in case you're looking for those subgroups. Again, we can go into this much deeper and actually see these students and who they are for different assessments or different reasons when we get to students 3D. The other one is score details. So it will only work with assessments that have score details. So this would not work with your grade book. But again, you can choose your year, your schools, your grade levels. This is where you do need to have a window or two and you would choose those details. So if you wanted to look at, say, just your national percentile rank, percent correct, whatever details you're trying to compare, you can do that search. It's like a choose your own adventure. It's whatever it is that's in your mind that you're trying to compare or look at in depth with score details. It'll give you your line graph, but it'll also give you a data list. It's not going to give you specific students. So again, that's why it's one of those that know it's here. You might have reasons to use this. It's not going to be quite as in depth for you, just because it's not going to give those student names that you're probably looking for here. Remember, you're going to really get the score details under that student and click in that box to see what's tied to them. So that's going to cover our bar graphs as far as digging into those. Now you have to be in grade or class to do what we're doing next. And I promise you, Ventura School, who asked that on break, and the others when I jumped in to your session, I promise we're going to district IDs. We're going to hit them right now. So you have several bar graphs pulled up. I want you to go to the far right and I want you to hit data wall. So data wall is like a super spreadsheet is what I like to call it. This is like an Excel spreadsheet. So if you know Excel, this is going to be pretty easy for you. If you don't know Excel, don't panic because it's still going to be easy for you. I'm going to guide you through on what you can get from this and how we can download this, how we can click into certain pieces. So just to clarify a data wall, there's a lot you're seeing right now. You're seeing your student name. You're seeing some extras underneath this extra title, all here. You're seeing an assessment here. This one is FSA. If I scroll from left to right, you're seeing Access, Language Arts Gradebook, Language Arts Gradebook, and MAP. So this is a lot, but it's really not. I want you to think of it like this. You see all this right here for MAP, all this for Language Arts. If I go back to my charts, all it's doing is taking this one assessment and putting it into a row on that Excel spreadsheet. It's taking this next assessment and it's putting it into these 4 different rows. And it's taken each of these different bar graphs that I have, and it's putting a fraction of a piece to each of the students' names and what their score was. So all I'm doing is taking everything I can see visually here for just bar graphs in general. And instead of clicking in and having to isolate just one bar graph at a time, if I come over to the data wall, I can now see my student 9160. And I'm able to go straight across and look at that student's score for every assessment that they've taken. So that's the advantage of this data wall. You're able to move these around just like a regular spreadsheet would be. So I can move my map up front instead of having it way back there. I'm able to sort these columns no different than I would a spreadsheet. So if I'm trying to see lowest to high or highest to low, it is kind of picky on where you click sometimes. I'm able to do that with any of these other assessments as well. If I see an assessment that has a little icon in front of it, like it does for map reading, it's like a little hierarchy icon, whereas Access Language does not have it. This means that there are sub-skills associated with it. So when we are looking at this, and this is one of the things that I've asked and tried to inquire a little bit further with, you should eventually see some sub-skills with your FSA. And when you click into that, it's going to populate those sub-skills here, as well as you being able to dig to them to your bar graphs, just like we did with MAP. So just to show you with MAP, if I click, it's going to give me my overall MAP reading scores. So here's my overall MAP reading. But as I scroll left to right, here are each of those sub-scores, those sub-skills on that student. So if I need to have these for a PLC and I want to start looking at informational text, how did they do in the fall, the winter, the spring? I'm able to get all that data going across that row on that student for all of their sub-skills. Going back to the original spreadsheet, I'm going to scroll over to the left now. Under extras, if you hover over, it'll tell you what those extras are. Attachments would be any files that are attached to a student. Smart forms will be an advanced feature, so we're not going to worry with that one. If there's any comments on a student, you would be able to see them here. Any interventions, I'm sorry, tags. Intervention is going to be over here. Any tags on a student. So 87029, this student has a tag LY. If I scroll down, this student 9160 has 2 different tags. And here, just to throw this out for day 2, this is why it's important to have different colors for those tags. So it really helps to make sure we see one tag versus another. Even though they have that little break line in between, sometimes it almost makes it feel like it goes as one tag if they're the same color. And if there's interventions on that student, which we'll talk about on day 4, as you start to use the intervention component and you build interventions, it will be in this particular column here. So these, just know they're here as you start to get more familiar with eduClimber, especially when we get into tags on day 2 and interventions day 4, this will start to really make more sense.
And just to let you know, Andrea, I know we're not covering it in any of these 4 trainings, but I did create a really cool smart form for our teachers to use.
Perfect.
I'll have a video coming out on it relatively soon.
Awesome. And that's what I was saying earlier for all of you all that are doing this. If you start to feel a little more interest and you're just curious, don't be afraid to click into those smart forms and go and read about them when you get over to your knowledge base site. Go search smart forms. They're really a fun way, really easy way to create forms on these kids, and you basically can pull all the information in and you don't have to go search piece by piece. So I'm going to leave that to Dr. Dave to show you that video, but don't be afraid to go search these beyond today's training. Even though I'm not showing it, go explore. You will need certain permissions. Reach out to Dr. Dave on that. Let him see your interest level, where you are and what you might need, but go explore them for sure. I never discourage people from doing that. Even though I'm not training it, just go take a look.
Yeah, they have permission to access the forms
Okay.
that have already been
Perfect.
made for our district templates. And there is a records review form in there that if they click and load up, it brings up every test score, incident, attendance issue that kid has ever had.
So just to show you guys, just for the sake of curiosity here, along that left side, if you just scroll down, it's about 3, 6, 7 down. It says smart forms. If you're just curious, if you're not, if it's too much, don't worry, just ignore me. But if you just want to see, I'll just show you one quick minute. Smart forms. When you look into smart forms, so these are some smart forms that have been created. If you come to the far right, just to show you to smart form templates and Climber Cloud, this sometimes is a good way for you to kind of explore and get a feel. Well, what are smart forms? What is this even about? You may or may not have access to this. I'm not sure if they do for Climber Cloud, but you can
I
double
believe
click
they do.
into. I'm thinking they might if they can create. If not, again, go play around with what you do have access to. Any of the students you do have that you can visualize.
And I will say it automatically gives the form a name, brings the kid's name in, which does not disappear in top secret view. So just anyone, if you're showing this video, skip this part with the kids' names.
Well, and I'm not showing what the forms are either, so they won't be able to see the information either. They just see there's
okay,
a
fair.
form.
I was gonna say we can open
I'm
one,
not gonna,
but,
yeah, you guys click into one. I won't. Now I can go into the Climber Cloud though. That's where I can show you what these are, because these are not any, I won't reveal any student information, but this is basically where any district that's using our program throughout the country, they decide these are real districts. They'll say, oh, okay, you know, I'm going to share this with everybody else because they might need it and it'll prevent them from having to redo it. So let's say it's a 504 notice of referral. This is what's on the form. And anytime you put the student's name, date of birth, this identifying information, anything else that's in that form, like say it's attendance or it's incidents or assessments, it'll automatically retrieve that information for you. So play around with the Climber Cloud part. You can go see what's shared with you in student forms. Like I said, I didn't open any of those. I don't want to show you that, but if you have access, just go double click just to view it.
can you look at the district templates real quick?
Yep.
Can you open the template for that teacher input form?
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to double click here and we'll even go to preview mode so you can see what it looks like printed.
So we'll do a lot more training on this later. You guys don't have to worry about it, but this is a form that either you can create and notify a teacher on, or a teacher can create and notify you on. A lot of the information will autofill, but this is an input recommendation form for MTSS. So you've got check the student's strengths, then check your academic concerns, all of that behavioral information. If they have a referral, not a minor infraction, if they have a referral, that'll come over. And then you can give behavioral concerns. All of their absences they've ever had will show up. And then the teacher can explain, what tier 1 strategies have I tried with them already? What supports do I think they need? And then they can submit that form, mark it complete, and then it will notify you that they've given you that input. So it's a really cool function that fills a gap that we didn't have previously.
And this is great. You put a lot of work into this, I can tell. So yeah, this gives you a chance to just click those things that you might feel as a teacher need to be. So I'm just randomly clicking. I'm not saving this form to this student, so don't worry with that. But I would be able to go ahead and you can see how easy it is just to maneuver through. You just click in, and if there's a disability code.
All of those light gray things will populate automatically.
Yeah,
their ELL status, their MTSS status. If they have a tag, it'll show up. And same with their disability. If they have one, it'll appear for you.
Yeah, so this is great. This is really good. You did a great job with that. And so the edit mode is just so you to see how it would be edited. That would be, again, if you have permission. And I'm going to say for Dr. Dave here for him, don't edit a form unless it's yours or he's telling you to edit. So if you have that permission, don't go in and edit anything. Stick in that preview mode. Just because I checked those things in preview mode, I didn't save anything, so it's just going to go away. So, start with the Climber Cloud if you're real curious about wanting to learn more to build them. If you're trying to see what he's already created for you and use those, stay in that district. But just kind of go to view it first and be careful with what you are going to try to alter, because it can change that template if you have that higher permission. We always say with power comes destruction. So if you have that power, it can be destroyed. So be real careful. And then Dr. Dave, I'm sure you can always make them inactive if you're trying to look at that too. So. Yep. All right. So I know we got off a little bit, but that's important because like I said, you guide the training. If there's things that you need to know, I'm not going to put them off. I promise what we don't get to today, we get on to today too. So I'm not worried with it. So we're going to go back to that data wall. And again, this is where we see those things. So as you start to use those smart forms, it'll have a number here if there's a smart form attached to that student. Now, every single one of these cells are clickable. So I'm going to show you in map first. If I'm looking at student 9160, he's got a 146 or she's got a 146 on that winter assessment. Let me click here. Well, here's the score breakdown. Here's their score details, bottom left. Sub-assessments. So basically, I'm only looking at this one student, but I'm seeing all the things I saw before. So this will help me to get a better idea of where the student is. Now, this is just visual. If I want to go into any other assessment, same thing, just click in the cell. If I want to get to a smart form, if I click in that cell, it'll show me what smart forms the student has. Same with interventions, tags. What tags apply to that student? So I can click into any of these cells. Now, I told you, and I didn't forget, we would talk about those district ID numbers. So the first thing I'm going to show you here is when you're on the data wall. This is something that you can print or download into a CSV file. Before you do that, I want you to look at this student tab to the left. I don't want you to go to a particular student. I want you to click into the student tab itself, the 3 lines. If you click, you're going to get a new box to appear. That box will have 9 dots over to the far right. When you click that 9-dot box, you're going to have a choice of some other things that we can add. One of them being the district ID. Now, the eduClimber ID is where we do random numbers. It still won't reveal anything about that student, but if for some reason you needed it, you would have it. We know there's no state ID, so I'm going to leave it with district ID. And let's say I want to look at date of birth, home language, gender, ethnicity, whatever of these choices, I could choose all or just some. They are now all revealed on my spreadsheet. So where I have this district ID, this came up on a group with a couple of people. And so Dr. Dave, I might need to have you guide me through this. I'm thinking I could be totally wrong because I am incognito, so it's really hard for me to tell. This student is a third grade student, so I think they're wondering why these IDs are not showing up on some students, but they are others.
There could be two reasons for that. The first is that, so when you select your IDs from the drop down, is there an other ID section? So when all of our IDs initially went in, they went in as other ID, and then it caused a huge problem with the FSA, and we had to get them brought back over to district ID, which makes me wonder if the kids below third grade didn't get fixed because they didn't do the FSA. That could be an issue. It could also be sometimes students get created. We have like ghost kids who exist. They weren't in our SIS for some reason, but their test data was there. So when we upload the test, the kid gets created because now they have an ID and we have all the information from their testing. But it's a lot of things like, oh, this kid was at Ventura Elementary from May 2nd to May 14th, and they took SA, but they weren't on any of our FTE periods. So they didn't get uploaded in that attendance thing, but they exist. And that causes some issues as well. So that won't be an issue going forward. It's only an issue from our historical upload of the past 3 years.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, we're going to dig into this one step further that might help identify. There is no other. I know what you're talking about, Dr. Dave. So basically, when they imported those numbers, some took and some didn't because of the way it was loaded. And it's a lot, I think, for them to try to correct it without messing up more data. So
oh yeah, they should not be trying to. I'll fix it on my end.
right. You guys won't. I mean, just in general, right? It was just a
Sure.
big thing. It wasn't a quick fix for Dr. Dave. And I'm going to say here, I do this every training, and so Dr. Dave, I have to give you credit for the amount of work you've done, especially for a district this big. So I have to kind of have his back on this to say this is so much work for one person to do. He has not only had 2 full-time jobs. This is like 3 full-time jobs. So
We'll say I've had a ton of help from people, from Daniel Saunders and from Elizabeth Hadley and Ashton Terry and Ashley Pierce and our data programmer Ruben. Like, we do have a really good team, but yeah, eduClimber is it's a big platform.
A beast. It really, and I say that as an educator. So I am not talking about the company right now. I'm saying this is a lot of work for upfront. This is a huge commitment. It will get easier. It will become more maintenance than it is all of this. With that being said, you are the eyes, you are the leaders here, you are the ones that he's counting on to look for this information and to say, I'm going to look for this, I'm not finding it. Is it a problem or is it supposed to be this way? Be sure to follow through with that, and whether it's with me on the training or beyond, ask those questions now. I'll try to dig into some answers where I can. A lot of times it ends up being a ticket where, you know, your district has to go in and do a little bit more to find out the cause. But bring those issues up, whether it's here or after, because he needs to know, he wants to make sure this is all fixed and ready to go when you do decide to roll out. So that, yeah, the eduClimber number is only within eduClimber. Let's see, its own number. Link school city, figuring out why some districts IDs are blank. Okay, so I'm going to go one step further in just a minute to see if we can troubleshoot that district ID. But right now we know that some aren't showing. So I put that on the parking lot. We will try to dig deeper. I'll do what I can to dig deeper too. A couple other things I want to say about this before we go further. I want you to know that you have that option to add those different pieces of demographics to your data wall. So I was able to put, if I want date of birth, gender, if there's a disability, I can sort here for those disabilities. If there's an EL status, let's see, it looks like you guys don't filter those in. So those I wouldn't worry with, and probably home language, same thing, yeah. But you have all these other options. Just play around with those so you get a feel of what can be pulled in. When you're ready, you can download that file to a CSV.
We do have EL status. It's in as a tag.
Okay.
Was how we brought it in.
Got it. So you guys will have that listed under a tag. So for EL, you want to come over here to your tag and look for it there. And I think I do remember seeing it. You had it as
Yeah,
EL, right?
it's LY, LS.
LY,
They know
okay,
what those are.
perfect. All right, so this is where we're going to go deeper to try to find out something with those district IDs. It might work, it might not, at least as far as an understanding. So I'm going to write down 2 numbers here for me. 476. I want you to choose a student here over to the left, and I want you to click into that student's name. So I'm going to go ahead and go to this first one, and I want you to click that student's name. So now we're looking at the student profile, which is the next part I'm going to take you to. Before I explain the student profile, just for the sake of trying to see if we can figure out something with this district ID, I want you to see if you have a little briefcase underneath where the picture would go in these demographics that are listed, student data. If you have that, I want you to click into it. And is there anybody that can see it? Even if just one person puts in chat, yes, I'll know that you can see it. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. So I want you to click into that student data. And what I want you to go to is IDs. If they have a district ID, it's toggled. I'm going to go look for one that didn't have it out of curiosity, Dr. Dave, and see what's there too.
Yeah, I just found it. They're in there, but they're untoggled.
That's what I was wondering. Perfect. Let's see. We can drill down and find something here then. So I'm going to the one that doesn't have it. And so it may just be a matter of, not that I want to put this on you, and I can see if there's an easier way, but it might just be a matter of going and toggling these on, and then it should appear. Okay, so if you don't have a toggle on your screen, that's okay. It's probably due to permissions because you probably
that's a
aren't
site
able
admin
to
thing.
change. Yeah. So I'll see if there's an easier way to bulk do this. I want to check. Bear with me for 1 second, guys. I'm sorry. I just want to help Dr. Dave with this for 1 second.
If there's not, I have an intern.
Okay, I want to see if there is also a different upload to it. If it's the same upload number. It's different upload numbers because the student I picked that did not have a district ID, and this is just for Dr. Dave, that upload number was 42. The ones that were already toggled was upload 12. I don't know if that'll help you to go check that upload 42 and see if there's a way to check it and re-upload. That might be the easiest way to do a bulk and capture all those kids.
Okay.
If that helps any. So it was 2 different upload numbers. So the rest of you guys ignore that for just a minute, but hopefully that's going to help all of you to get what you're looking for this piece, to get those ID numbers. So there could have been more uploads, Dr. Dave. I don't know. I'll help you later with that. I don't mind to sit and help you with that just to take a peek. So from here, let's just, because of time, I want to focus on the student profile page. The good news is Ventura and the other lady that had talked to me in group, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. You asked about those district IDs. So here's the good news. There's a fix. And so we're going to get that fixed. And ultimately you will see those district IDs. So perfect for catching it, and great. We will figure out an easy way, hopefully, for that to be done. So someone asked before, well, if that student isn't there for a particular assessment, I think it was Melanie. So yes, Melanie, you're welcome. I'm pretty sure it was you. I apologize. I couldn't remember your name. So if you're looking for a student historically, someone asked earlier, if I can't see them for that assessment, you know, how does that look? Can I get to that other information? I'm kind of adding to some of that with what they asked. When you go to the student's profile, the first thing you're going to see in the top left is that student's name. Following through, I don't want you to, we always say look at 3-dot menus in eduClimber. Don't worry about this one. It does not apply. It's about a student password. You can't do it. It doesn't work. Don't worry with that. Eventually, you're going to see a picture. You will see any of the tiles with the demographics. You now know a little bit more than what we even really teach or with the briefcase for student data. We typically don't even get into that. So at least you know it's there, and you can look into any of this data. It's coming from your school information system. Some of it might be there, some of it might not, because it is based on permission. So you're not going to see where you can add things or toggle, but it still gives you a little bit of background on that student. So you don't have to go to SIS. You can stay right here. It keeps it all efficient and easy to fool with. If there's attachments, you'll see a number. As far as assigned staff, you're not going to see anything there. Now coming over to going toward the right part of the screen, we're going to get to attendance either today or on the next training, day 2. So all of these are clickable. We're not going to click them yet. Smart forms. If there were any smart forms, it would list them there, since we just talked about that. If there's comments on a student, you would see them there. Tags. Notice there's 4 tags on this student. If you click it, you'll be able to see what 4 tags. So you might go, wait, there's more than 4 tags here. Yep. So what happens with tags, and I'll mention this on day 2 when we get there, but just so we can throw it out there now, it's only going to show recent tags for the year that we're on. So we're in 21-22. So I don't want to see, by the time this child gets to 12th grade, 199 tags, because it's almost kind of like unfair. Like, why does this kid have all these tags? That must be bad. First of all, tags can be anything: sports, chess club, after school, gifted. It could be anything you want it to be, but we just don't want to see a high number of tags. So when you click, it's going to sort it by year, but you're only going to see the number of tags for the year that you're on. That would be active. And some of those are duplicated is why. We can clean all that up after. So you've got your tags here. Thresholds, don't worry about, and observations, I don't want you to worry with those 2.
I will say on thresholds, there is one really cool threshold. If you're a 21st century school, it just tells you if the kid is a 21st century candidate or not.
So if you happen to be there, click onto that threshold tab and it'll tell you if there's one there or not. And we can, I'll show you that again another time and we can dig into it more as well. But again, don't be afraid to play with those things, that you'll have access to them. If you're brave and you like technology and you like figuring it out, go play. You won't be able to mess it up. So incidents, if the student has any incidents reported, you'll see them here. If you click, you'll be able to dig into those incidents. We'll cover that again either today or day 2. Interventions, once you start to use interventions, you'll see active as well as historical. So this does take time to build. So even when you start interventions, you'll only see active. As those students phase out or go to different interventions, they'll be listed in historical. The good news here is you can always see what the student was in. And that's the point of this whole screen. Where's my student now? Where are they coming from? What information do I need to know on their past to help continue to build progress for their future? So latest assessments, I can see all: literacy, math, science, social studies, or I can toggle just onto that content area. So if I have this student this year, they weren't here last year, they were here the year before, whatever the scenario is, as long as this student, 11476, has data in eduClimber that was pulled in from other systems like your map, your grade book, whatever it is, the data for the current year you're on in the top right, which again, we're in 21-22, will populate here. Any historical data will be to the far right. And if you hover over that little squiggly line with the graph, it says historical data. If I click it, it now brings me to all years that are associated with this student for all assessments. So 2021 all the way through 21-22. And again, I'm on a student 11476, so it shows their name. It would show you their name, what their district score was, projected national mean. Again, if it's grade book, we're only going to see that district average here. And then the last thing I want to show you, without me clicking on it, because it will reveal the name and the student's data, I'm going to walk you up to the point of clicking, and I want you to click so you can see. Let's say you want all of this printed out for a report for a parent. I want you to think about a time where you need to pass this information on, but it needs to be in a PDF form. You can do that. All of this information can now be put onto a PDF file for you to be able to use for a parent, for another school, whatever your case is. You would click your year that you're on. We can even go back to 22, 23. We're just not going to have anything there yet. I want you to go to the Create button wherever you are. Click Create Assessment Report, the first one. You're going to get a bar or a menu that looks like this. You will be able to filter down to this information, but I don't want you to right now. I just want you to see what's there. So I want you to go and click where it says school year. Click that downward arrow, and I want you to choose 21, 22, and 2021. So choose 3 years. When you start to know what data is there, if you're trying to isolate certain data, that's where you can start to filter these, but we're not going to do that. Just know they're there. Know that you can do different things here, excluding or including, even getting into an incidents. Again, leave it wide open. I want you to hit generate. I can't click it at this point, but when you hit generate, you're going to see a PDF file appear. It'll show your school logo, your school information. It'll show the student's demographics, and then any assessments tied to that student will be portrayed visually with color. It will show you where they're scoring for the parent and what the district average might be, or the national mean, whatever it is. It's all the same things that you can see for that parent to now have access to. So I understand that in Florida, you have to give those assessment reports within 2 weeks. Let's say you needed to give this to a parent immediately within, that week before. Maybe you'd given yourself a week extra ahead of time. You could print this assessment report, have that for that parent to see in that meeting.
Just to preview in the future for you all, we will have a report that's going up in Focus in the parent internet viewer that's already under construction. It'll be available for parents soon, but we are looking into, hopefully, setting up the parent viewer for eduClimber, so they'll be able to log in. It's in beta with eduClimber right now, but that's a functionality we're hoping to have for our parents, for them to be able to go in and look at this data directly for their own children.
And that will be really cool too when that comes out. So yes. So in the meantime, or for whatever other reasons, maybe it's for just a committee or something that you need this. A lot of people don't realize that you can print this information out. Again, I have to say on behalf of the district and the company, be careful and when you're printing this out and who you're giving it to, because it's all very confidential but I know you know that, so forgive me for having to say it, but we do have to, just as a reminder, especially if you're saving it on your computer. If you switch computers, make sure to delete that stuff off there, as you may well know. So that's where we go for student profile. That's the information. If you want to take just a minute, if you click the back arrow, it'll bring you to your Find Students page. This is where you can go and search your favorite student. In case you just want to take a minute and look there, search your favorite student, go look at that student's profile. You'll be able to start to see and get a feel. It's set up the same way. So everything up to this point that we have done is the same navigation click path. So everything you're doing, you're navigating through it. It doesn't matter what assessment's thrown your way for grade. You're going to do the same search. You're going to do the same clicking into whatever assessment gets here. Once FAST is loaded in, you click in FAST. It's the same thing. You're going to do the same type clicking as we did with any of these others. Same process for the data wall. How you want to click in and view that information. Sub skills. And then when you get to that student profile. So different ways to click into all of that information, but same click path, regardless of the data that's being presented. So any questions so far that you may have for me? Everybody's feeling good about things? No confusion? Taking a quick look for the people I can see. Okay. All right, thank you, Gidget. All right.
I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
I tried to pull NSGRA scores for one of my students. Will that be able to be found? Because right now it's not pulling it for this particular student. I know she was NSGRA last year.
I haven't I haven't configured it yet. That's on me. I have to go in. NSGRA has 27 levels, pre-A, B, C. And I have to
Yeah.
go in and say, for a kindergartner who took this in the fall, a pre-A is this, and an A is this, and a B is this. So I'm
Gotcha.
working my way through it, but until I finish the whole thing, NSGRA won't visualize.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, it's a lot of work. Dr. Dave, I don't know if you've slept any.
Yeah, that
but
one's
it's-
27 levels times 6 grades times
Oh,
3 assessment
gosh.
periods where the letters are different every single
It's a
way.
lot. It is a
So,
lot
yeah.
of work.
NSGRA
Once
is
it's
a big one.
there, it'll be there and it's maintaining at that
Mhm.
point. So that's where Dr. Dave gets to breathe and take a break. But yes, you guys will definitely have all this at your fingertips, and it's just so much easier to really look at this data and go through. So Gidget's asking Dr. Dave if they can just get that information from School City for now. I would assume yes.
Yes,
Okay,
it's in School City. It's all the historical data is all there, and we are configuring that so that as the assessments are taken, it carries over directly. You may have noticed School City now has a fun send to eduClimber button to port that data over. But again, until it's fully configured, it won't show up. So yes, School City is a good way to look at it right now.
All right, and if there's any other questions, feel free to ask. If not, I'm going to move on to one other thing before we finish today. Yes, I think I can answer that, right, Dr. Dave? They will have fast data soon. It's just a matter of once they finish the assessments. I talked to someone in a breakout. I think you guys are still in the process of taking those. So once they're completed and the auto upload is done, then you'll be able to see it just like a map assessment would be.
Yep, we have
that
to, so we have to download it all directly from FAST and upload it. In the future, FAST data will all be coming over directly. It's a Renaissance product, so it will talk very well to
Mhm.
eduClimber. But the state of Florida got their contract with FAST, with a Renaissance directly and with Cambium directly. So the traditional form that is, oh, Renaissance, we're giving Renaissance permission to share our data no longer works because it's the state of Florida's data that FAST is sharing. So I will be importing as soon as the testing window closes. I'll be importing it all directly. We're targeting September 19th for that FAST data to come in, but we hope to have it sorted out so that the winter assessment just shows up the next day after the kids test.
So perfect, yes. So you guys will have that data. Again, a lot of work in the initial phases, so definitely know he's working hard because I know how much goes into this. So it's a lot at first. It will be so much easier once it's all there. So all right, I just want to show you one more thing because I don't want to start like cramming things down your throat just because of time. I told you we're going to take our time. We're going to work through what we need to work through, and we pick up for the next day where we are because we will have a little extra time and it's naturally built in. I just want to show you one more thing though while we have some time, and I think it'll flow pretty easily. I want you to go over to wherever your search is on a grade tab, whatever you've searched already. Feel free to switch up your search if you just want to see something different. But right now, whatever you've searched, you might see some bar graphs, you might have a data wall. Come over to the charts at the top right. And then I want you to go to incidents on your left side. So you'll see literacy, some content areas, math, whatever other content areas are associated with your search. And then you'll see incidents. I want you to click incidents here, and I just want to show you where incidents are and what we're able to see with this.
I want to say one quick thing before we go into this, Andrea. These are all referrals that have been given to a kid. So if you did this as a classroom minor infraction, that's not going over to eduClimber. So I know it says major and minor. That's based on the weight of the incident referral. But if it's a minor that you marked in focus as just a minor infraction, that is not carrying over.
Oh, thank you for that clarification. So yeah, so where we're seeing for this, what Dr. Dave's talking about here too, for that major minor, you'll see if you hover over what they are, but what he's saying is that the weight of those minors, if it's entered as a minor, correct me if I'm incorrect with this, but if it's entered as a minor in your SIS and focus, then that's not coming through. These are just those state reportable, basically those big offenses that are the things being reported that you're able to visualize.
It's just if they
Right.
put it in as a referral. So the state reportables
Referral,
that you
okay.
can see are the assessors. For us, that's our state reportable incidents. The rest of them are full referrals, but we do have in our SIS the ability to say this was a classroom infraction, and those don't come over.
So those won't be there. So you won't see
Mhm.
those lesser the lesser labels, I should say. I don't even want to say referral. So if you look at this, the way it populates is you have your what? Incident type, incident code, response. Those just aren't coming through. I'm going to guess you're not doing response, right? Okay, so don't worry about response. You have your when. It'll show you by month, weekday, and hour. Now, hours are only going to be based on if you even want those to come over, or if you do, how precise you're making them in focus. Right now, it's just coming over as one time. So I would disregard time right now, but I would pay attention to your months and your weekdays. This is helpful for PBIS information. You've got your where things occurred, location. I'm only on one school, so I'm only going to see one school. If I was in district looking at several schools, I'd have several bar graphs here. Who? So my counselors, these are where you're really going to want to pay attention to based on your students and your search. Who are those students that are struggling the most? Who are those that you know you need to help? These are your top 20. Again, rostered school, it's the same as here, it's one school. So at the top, you're going to see a light bulb next to where it says charts. If you click that light bulb, you're going to see that a lot now. We saw it in effectiveness. Now we're going to see it throughout incidents. And when we get to attendance, you're going to see it there. This is a summary of everything I'm looking at on this page. So for Ventura, for third grade, I would be looking at the summary of those incidents from last year at this time. Anything I change is going to alter that summary. So I'm going to jump over to a middle school. Actually, I'm going to jump to a high school just because I'm sorry. I'm a teacher by heart. So, you tend to see a few more incidents in high school, and I want you to just have a view of some things here. So I'm just going to pick a high school at random. I'm picking 10th grade. And I'm going to go to incidents again. So anything I click, I'm drilling down. So if I just want to see those state reportable, I would click here. If I just want to see these majors, I click onto that blue bar graph. So right now I'm doing an incident drill down. So I said, who are these? And feel free to click around while we do this. There's a lot of clicking that you're going to do here. It's a choose your own adventure at this point. I want to go and see, okay, I'm the administrator at this school. Who are these students? What majors are we talking about? So I'm going to click into that first bar graph. But I don't get a list. I'm going to get a whole lot more bar graphs. Incident drill down, I want you to pay attention to the bottom left of your screen. So I'm looking at any incidents. I just clicked into those majors, but I might say, okay, I want specifically some locations. Classroom. So I'm going to click classroom. So I have the majors in classrooms. It's a choose your own adventure. So the more I keep clicking, the more I'm drilling down. So maybe I'm looking at a particular subgroup. Maybe I'm looking at white. So I'm looking at majors in the classroom, white subgroup. Maybe I just want females. Eventually, whatever I'm drilling down to, if I continue to drill down, I'm eventually going to get a 1 on every one of these bar graphs because I just drilled down so much. So I can go to primary code here. Let's say I go to this one. So now I'm looking at defiance and willful disobedience. So look, everything's got a 1. So this is like your choose your own adventure. It's whatever it is you're trying to dig into. It will remind you at the bottom left what you've dug into, exactly where you are for this view. So you've basically said, eduClimber, go find this, and here's the results. If I truly am only looking for this particular search, you can come to the top right and hit data list. On that data list, it will tell you those students or one student in this case, who they are. So I'm going to back out again, and I'm going to do it one more time with you. So let's say I'm looking at minors in this case, and I want to see all minors that were classroom. No, I'm going to go to school grounds just because there's less. So again, I'm on incident drill down. I went to minors and school grounds. That's it. I didn't go any further. I want to see who these students are. Maybe I'm trying to focus on just school grounds this quarter, and I want to see what's going on with these students to try to prevent these incidents from occurring. So I'm going to come over to data list. Here's all of the students. You'll see names. You'll see their rostered high school, all of the information you need. I'm not going to click, but if you get to that data list and you have a student or students here, I want you to click this little caret that says description. Underneath that description, it'll tell you what was entered into Focus that came over into eduClimber. It will tell you probably the student's name, very likely, as well as here, just because naturally, you know, when we're writing a student referral, we tend to say the student's name and exactly what occurred. It's a good place to have that double check to make sure you don't have two names coming through, because if so, you probably, especially if parents are going to start visualizing this information, you don't want them to have that other student's name. So make sure you mention that to Dr. Dave so it gets cleaned up in Focus so it doesn't get out there. But you will see that description. Now you can download this into a CSV file. I know at one point they were working on getting that description to also print. I don't know, and I don't want to click it here at the sake of, you know, revealing a name. They were working on that description to come up. It may or may not come up. I know that they were trying to put a work on that though. So maybe in the future, if it's not showing, it will. As of my last check, all I know I saw was this loaded into a CSV file. So you can still have a spreadsheet with this. The chance of description there, I'm not sure, but hopefully that will be something in the future. So I'm going to click out of this and get back to that main page. So I'm just on incidents now. So I'm looking at all incidents. I'm not going to drill into any of these bar graphs. So this is just my search. Harmony High, 10th grade, 21-22 school year, all incidents. I want to come over to this part now for data wall to the far right. And I want to start to look at my tiers of students. So data wall, far right. And now I'm going to see something similar to what was in assessment. Any comments, tags, interventions. But here's where I can see majors, minors in those state reportable. Same functionality. If I click here and sort these columns, I'm going to see my tier 3 students, my tier 2, and my tier 1. So for each of those columns, you'd be able to sort and see which of those were tier 3 students, tier 2, and tier 1. Just so you know, this will be on the slide, so you don't have to try to remember. It's also in the learning guide. 0 to 1 is tier 1, 2 to 5 is tier 2, and 6 or more are tier 3. And guess what? As you might imagined, all of these are clickable. So if I'm working with this student 54911 and I want to see, well, what were these minors? If I click into them, I'll get a blue bar graph again. I'll get a summary of just this student. So here's where I might need to report this out to the parent or to whatever committee for assistance, whatever it might be. And no, these don't print, but you always know that workaround where you can either copy, paste, or do a screenshot of this box. And so you don't have to retype. I wish they would make it typable, printable, but they don't. So just do your workaround, you know, work your magic with those screenshots or copy paste. And I also have a data list. So if I do need to see this student in a full report of everything going on with just 54911 student, download it to a CSV file, and this is just that student's discipline. So you have the ability to click into any of these cells to dig further.
And just to preview a little bit, I know that today we're only pulling data out and talking about looking at that data, but on September 20th, when we talk about interventions, we have a lot of cool stuff for behavioral interventions preset in the system for you guys.
Yes, interventions is going to be fun. We'll be able to really, really look, and you can even cross categorize expectations, and if there's a certain class that the disruption's occurring, and we'll be able to really, really break down data. This is a good place for you to create those tags, though. Again, just as a reminder, if you want to say, I'm going to create my own tag as a counselor, I'm working with these students, I'm going to tag these students, and it's He-Mel's counseling group. I can create a tag just for me. We'll talk about that on day 2. And I'm just working with this select group of kids, or maybe it's a global tag. Either way, anytime you click that checkbox in front of that student's name, you'll see a bar appear that then allows me to tag students. All right, any questions with incidents so far? So pretty straightforward. You do your search, you have your light bulb, which again, your light bulb changes anytime you change that data. You have charts, you have a data wall. If you dig in to any of these bar graphs, you're drilling in further, you still have the ability to get that data list. So this data wall will show your tiers of students. This data list will show those students the list with who they are, the dates, the occurrence, all those things. And then I'm going to take you to one more to finish up for today, and that's attendance. So if you'll click the last tab on the left that says attendance, it's going to work a lot like incidents. So the same click path that we just did is going to be very similar for attendance. You've got first screen, your tab. So I'm looking by school. Well, I only have one school chosen. I only have one grade, so I'm only going to see one dot. But weekday. So my 10th graders at this school, I can see the pattern for their attendance throughout the week. I can see it throughout the month. Remember, we're on last year's data. By ethnicity. By gender. Again, I tend to think of my counselors, maybe even truancy officers, admin. Here's my top 20 students. Every time I click a new tab, I get a new summary, just like in incidents. So if I'm looking at ethnicity and I click that summary, here's those subgroups that have the lowest or highest rates. By month, here are those months that have the highest and lowest. Weekday, same thing. So it changes every time I click onto a new tab. One other thing I want to mention here is when we typically talk about attendance, we don't talk about percentage rates. We don't say what percent was Joey out. We say how many days did Joey miss? If you click onto any dot, and it's in any of these screens that this will work. So I'm just going to stay in weekday. I'm going to click a dot right here for Tuesday. When I click it, my screen freezes and I get a box that appears. So to show you what I did again, just choose one of your tabs, click a dot. I'll go Wednesday here. When I click this dot, it freezes. Gidget, when you talk about the little flag icon on the right, are you talking about the light bulb? I know you don't have, I know your voice doesn't work. So, oh, left. Okay. So you don't have attendance?
Oh, she might be referring to thresholds.
Oh, here. Don't worry with that, because we're just going to stay right here in attendance. Don't worry with this left bar right now. That's just a permission base. So if you need it, when we're not going to go over that, but I can talk to you more about that later.
Yeah, I'm setting the thresholds for them. We can look at it when we cover student profiles. Yeah,
it's something that we really don't cover in this training anyway, but I'll mention it just to kind of put it out there. So yeah, perfect. Okay, so perfect. Just want to make sure you have attendance. I'm going to click this dot. It freezes my screen and it lets me see the absent counts now. Because we don't talk in rates all the time, we talk in numbers. So attendance rate is what I'm on here. If I go to count, now I'm going to see the counts of those students. So I'm going to see numbers this time. It's going to take a minute because it's so many. And I may have to narrow down just a little bit with it. It's just because it's last year's data and we're retrieving it. It's probably a lot.
And for our high schools, we sent over every class period worth of attendance. So it's
So it will be a lot,
180
yeah.
days times 8 periods times
All of
2,000
those students.
students. It's a lot.
So let's do this. I'm going to go to 21, 22, and I'm
We
just going to
sent
pick.
over,
Yeah,
if anyone's curious, we sent over 85 million attendance records.
that it's a lot. You guys are such a big district. It's probably one district. I think I've only had one other that has had a huge amount of information that we've had to siphon, and it was one in California. So just to go back again where I was to attendance, if I click that dot, and we're going to stop in a second, we'll pick this up on day 2 because I don't want to try to cram this down and rush through it. But if I do counts, I'm going to get those blue bar graphs. Same run and feel of what we just did a minute ago with incidents. So I can start to drill into these. At the bottom left, it's going to show me what I'm drilling into, and I can get a data list. So here's a list of absences based on what I searched. And then I can also go straight to the data wall to look at tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 students. So same look and feel. I don't want to rush this, and I don't want to go over time. So I'll pick up attendance when we come back on day 2. Or let me look at Danielle's comment real quick. Highlighting counselors over coaches. Please be sure you're looking at discipline, attendance, academics as a team. So Ms. Saunders is asking if you will please make sure coaches, you guys look at discipline, attendance, academic, look at it as a team so that you can focus on that whole child. Yes. And so that's where when we get into day 2 and 3, I'm going to show you ways, especially for you guys for PLCs, especially coaches, that you can take some of this information, and where we're able to look and see these little buttons, there's going to be a place for you to create collections, and it will show you collections of not only your grade level, but you can get all the way down to pinning certain students so that you have that view right away. And again, don't forget that student profile. When you look at student profile, you are looking at that whole child. You are looking at everything that child has, whether it's incidents, attendance, whatever it is. Make sure that you look through that, put it onto data walls where possible, look at a combination of this information so that you can really see them. So with that, I'm going to stop. I promise we'll pick that up on day 2. I'm not leaving you there and we're done. I want to give you time to play in incidents and attendance as well. So I showed you what we could. We'll pick it up on day 2. Any questions for you, please, for me rather, ask me, please. And then I'll turn it over to Dr. Dave so that I don't hold you any longer.
I just want to say a few quick things. First of all, thank you so much, coaches, for attending today. I know it's hard to get away from all the things going on in your campus, but I really appreciate that you're all here. Just a reminder, we have 3 more of these exact same time, Tuesdays, next 3 weeks in a row. So it'll be Tuesdays at 8:30, and I will send you those invites with the new Zoom links, the calendar invites. Just a couple of questions that came into me that I want to highlight. First of all, you do not need to put any MTSS tagging stuff into Focus. We are setting it up so that if you do the tags in eduClimber, you do that tier 3 and tier 2 tag, which we'll talk about next week, that's going to go back to Focus automatically, and it will tag them in Focus and generate the triangle. And we're setting that up to import in there. So we're putting something on your plate, but we want to take something off your plate as well. So there will be no more having to go into each individual kid and check every single kid one by one for your entire school. You'll just do the batch in eduClimber and it'll carry back over. We're going to talk about tagging next week and you'll learn a lot more about it. I just want to give you the heads up. Our expectation will be that you do the tier 2 and tier 3 tags by September 30th. So you'll have 3 full weeks after you get the training on it to get in there, put those tags in. And the reason for that is that we have to have it in by FTE. So we need to send it back over to Focus to send that up to the state. But I do really think it's going to be a very light lift for you this year in terms of that. And then a lot of people reached out and asked, when can they start sharing this with their teachers? As long as they go in through that educlimber.com and use their first name dot last name, all lowercase, space if they have 2 last names, reset their password, they should be good. Teachers are all the Active Directory email. It's their old email, the at osceola.k12.fl.us. But you can start your training whenever. We are leaving that up to you and your administrative team, your school leadership team, to have that conversation. How do you want to roll this out at your site? Do you want to just have it be your leadership team that you're using this for data, for tagging kids and for collecting information? That's fine. Do you want to roll it out and train your teachers so they can look at their class data? You're welcome to do that. Just remember that we do have 3 more weeks of training, and we haven't even looked at like my top 5 favorite things on this platform. We haven't looked at a single one of them yet. So there's a ton more to come. But that will be up to you. This is a train the trainer. At the end of this, September 20th, you will be an eduClimber trainer. So you are welcome to set that up however you want at your school. And you can give any of your employees who attend those trainings, you can give them my PGS points, points towards their certificate for attending that training. So Andrea, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited for the next 3 sessions. As you said, does anyone have any questions here in this moment? Otherwise, we'll end the recording and wrap it up.
And listen, if you guys start to have questions when you leave, that's very common. Put them on that parking lot and I'll take a peek at that before the next session and do my best to answer any that I can. So don't feel like you're stuck beyond this without being able to ask questions, as well as when we come back next time, we'll start with some questions and a review. I want to thank you for your time. I know your days are busy. I know your time doesn't stop because you're on this training. So thank you. And I will see you on day 2 and I'll let you go from there, Dr. Dave, to dismiss.